Chapter 536. Soldier's Assault received a lot of attention from the start of filming. On one hand, it was because Chen Fengchen was the director. Television dramas directed by the old man were almost always the blockbuster of the year. On the other hand, Chen Fengchen used a lot of rookies and old actors who were not famous or had never played the lead role before. This caused a lot of controversy. After filming started, Yang Yi and Murphy's relationship was exposed. Yang Yi, who had risen to fame as the original author of the series, brought even more fame to the series. At the press conference today, the reporters were surprised to see Yang Yi walk out behind Chen Fengchen and the others in a low-key manner. They raised their hands excitedly, wanting to ask Yang Yi questions. After all, this guy and his wife rarely went out and basically didn't see anyone. It had been more than a month since a reporter had been able to interview Yang Yi in person. However, after the press conference began, when a group of reporters excitedly asked him and Mo Fei some questions, Yang Yi took the initiative to say, "Today is the press conference of Soldier's Assault, so please ask more questions about the show. Other than that, please forgive me for not being able to answer." He really did what he said, which made some of the gossipy reporters feel very disappointed. "You have a good plan, but I have a way around it." The reporters were also very smart. They thought of ways to skirt around the edges. For example, they would ask, "Yang Yi, Soldier's Assault, has been adapted into a television series. Do you have any role in this series?" Or even more circumstantial questions would be, "Did Murphy make a guest appearance in this series? If not, does she have any plans to make a comeback?" Hearing this series of roundabout questions, Yang Yi couldn't help but want to complain in his heart. Luckily, Chen Fengchen and the other old foxes were very good at controlling the situation. They joked around and pulled the reporters' attention back to the series itself. After the press conference, Yang Yi said goodbye to Chen Fengchen and declined their invitation to dinner. He then drove to pick up Shi. Today, Shi was also a little abnormal. Usually, when the little girl was on the way back, she would excitedly talk to her father about a lot of things. However, today, Shi was unusually quiet. Yang Yi glanced at the girl sitting in the back through the rear-view mirror. Her big black eyes were rolling around, and he didn't know what she was thinking. Shi, didn't you have anything to be happy about in kindergarten today?" Yang Yi asked tentatively. "There is." Shi nodded and couldn't help but say, "Mr. Shen taught us to speak English. I can also say potato and tomato." "Haha, Papa, is potato the same as tomato?" The little girl couldn't help but smile until her eyes turned into crescents. "Potato is potato, tomato is tomato. These two are not the same. You have to learn to distinguish between them." Yang Yi smiled and said, "I know, Papa. I mean, they are similar." She said with joy. Then Zhao Yu went to sleep again. He doesn't like to speak English. Yang Yi smiled. However, Shi seemed to have thought of something. She quickly raised her small hand and covered her mouth, not saying anything. "What's wrong with you? Why don't you continue to tell your father about the fun things in kindergarten?" Yang Yi asked in confusion. However, the little girl covered her mouth and shook her head. "What's going on?" Fortunately, Shi was never a child who could hold back her words. When she saw that her father didn't ask, she couldn't help but slightly loosen her small hand and cover her mouth less tightly. She whispered, Mom said I can't tell Papa." "What? Why can't you tell Papa?" Yang Yi's ears were very sharp. He asked in amusement. The little girl seemed to be coerced. She shook her head vigorously and then put down her hand. She pouted and twisted her mouth and said, "Oh Papa, don't ask me. Is that okay? You can't tell Papa." "What's going on? Why are you being so mysterious?" Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, they were about to arrive home. Yang Yi was going to go back and ask Murphy what was going on. The Humvee slowly drove in through the open gate. As usual, Steamed Bun followed beside it and excitedly welcomed the return of the Big Master and the Little Master. When Yang Yi got out of the car, he didn't see Murphy coming out to greet him. Usually, she would come out to greet him. Moreover, the curtains in the front living room were closed. What happened? Yang Yi wasn't a person who liked changes. Murphy's abnormality made him feel that something was wrong. He quickly patted Shi, who was giggling with steamed bun, and pushed the door open with her into the house. But just as they entered the house, they heard a "pa" sound. It wasn't very loud. Although Yang Yi's muscles suddenly tensed, he reacted immediately and didn't make any moves to counterattack. This sound was too familiar. When he celebrated Murphy's birthday, he used this firecracker. As he expected, amidst Cece's exclamations of shock and surprise, the shredded confetti that filled the sky swirled down and landed on his and Cece's hair and shoulders. Steamed Bun, who came in with them, also had some scattered on his head. He shook his head and shook his body to shake off the shredded confetti. Yang Yi turned his head and saw Murphy, who was lying in ambush, smiling like a flower. Murphy threw down the firecrackers and opened her white arms. She smiled and said, "Hubby, happy birthday." At this time, Yang Yi also saw that the entire living room was decorated like a birthday party. There were all kinds of balloons and confetti, just like what he had arranged for them before. They were very attentive. Right, it's my birthday. Yang Yi's brain suddenly turned. His predecessor didn't pay much attention to this, and he didn't pay much attention to it either, so he forgot that today, no, tomorrow was his lunar birthday. Yang Yi's lunar birthday was different from Murphy's. If it was tomorrow, Yang Yi also understood. No wonder Murphy asked him what the date was at noon this afternoon. Thank you for remembering my birthday." Yang Yi gently hugged Murphy's waist, which was already a little plump, and said somewhat emotionally. She was also unwilling to be left out. She bounced and said, Papa, I also know your birthday, Mom told me. Mom said that I can't tell Papa, because I want to give Papa a surprise." Yang Yi turned his head and looked at the smiling little girl. She pulled on her father's trousers and giggled, as if she also wanted to get her father's praise. Dad was wondering why she didn't want to talk to Dad when she came back from kindergarten today. It turned out that she wanted to celebrate Dad's birthday. "Thank you, Shi. Dad is also very happy." Yang Yi hugged the little girl, kissed her tender little face, and then said with a smile. She giggled and shrank her neck to hide in her father's arms, as if being kissed by her father was very shy. Of course, she was also too happy, so she was playing tricks. Yang Yi didn't have time to talk to Shi. He stretched out his right hand, held Murphy's waist, and walked with her to the living room. At the same time, he asked curiously, "You arranged so many tricks by yourself? Wouldn't you be exhausted?" Murphy snuggled in Yang Yi's arms and said with a smile, "How could I do so much? Actually, I asked Xiaowan, Xiaoai, Xiaogua, and Xiaoding to help." "What about them?" Yang Yi's ears moved, but he didn't feel any other movement. They went back. "Tomorrow, they will give you a gift at the coffee shop, because tomorrow is actually your real birthday. Today, I want to celebrate it with you alone, and accompany you through the early morning, our family together." Murphy sat on the sofa, holding Yang Yi's arm, looked at Yang Yi pitifully, and said, "I'm a little selfish, will you be unhappy?" "How is that possible? I think it's not easy for you to come up with so many ideas for my birthday." Yang Yi smiled and rubbed Murphy's head. It had to be said that this woman was very good at decorating, and she did it better than Yang Yi. Even the three kittens, Xiao Guai, Xiao Gray, and Dodo, who stayed on the cat tree unwillingly, wore small singlets with the three characters I, heart, and you on them. "Hee, you don't have to cook today, because it's already done. Although it's Xiaoding who made it, I have an assistant," Murphy said. At this moment, Shi, who was playing on the side, raised her little head and shouted excitedly, "Mom, I want to eat cake." "Yes, and cake." Murphy nodded with a smile. "Well, today I'll be the birthday boy who doesn't have to do anything," Yang Yi said happily. "And I prepared a surprise for you tonight." Murphy bit her lower lip and said in Yang Yi's ear with her charming eyes. Chapter 537. There's a surprise tonight? When Yang Yi saw Murphy's intoxicated expression, he immediately guessed what the surprise was. Ever since Murphy got pregnant, he had been holding it in for a few months. Not counting the times he used his hands or other parts of his body, when he heard Murphy's whispers, the wildfire in Yang Yi's heart began to burn. Glancing at Shi, Yang Yi could only lower his voice and whisper into Murphy's sparkling ear, "Look at what you're saying. I want to skip the previous programs and go straight to the theme." After flirting with Yang Yi, Murphy got up from his arms with a smile and said, "That won't do. The theme is your birthday. Shi and I have prepared some small programs for you." In the evening, after dinner, Yang Yi's birthday party began. Murphy said that she had prepared some small programs, mainly singing. After all, Murphy had only secretly told Shi about it yesterday. There was no special rehearsal, so they could only perform what they knew. It was impossible for them to come up with anything special. The first program was her and she singing, "The King Asked Me to Patrol the Mountains." The main character was Shi. The little girl was now very skilled in singing this song. "The king asked me to patrol the mountains. I'll go around the human world. I'll play my drums and strike my gong." Shi, who was wearing a cute little nightgown with a rabbit pattern, stood in front of her parents with a bright smile. She twisted and turned like a little elf dancing among the flowers. Of course, Shi also had times when she forgot the lyrics. At this time, Murphy sang a few lines with her. "The sun blinked at me, the birds sang to me." Then, Shi's big eyes lit up. She sang along with the lyrics in a clear voice, "I'm a hard-working little fairy who's not clingy." Here, the little girl even made a move by herself. She cutely used 2 index fingers to point at her little face, bashfully, like a little fairy in an exaggerated play. Then, she felt a little embarrassed and threw herself between her father's legs, giggling. After Shi's performance, Murphy performed 2 small programs for Yang Yi. One was her playing the violin. Murphy's violin playing skills were not superb, but after all, she had been playing since elementary school. She played a world-famous violin song called Autumn Love Song. Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other warmly amidst the gentle melody. If it weren't for she jumping around and giggling while pulling steamed bun, who was forced to stand up, the atmosphere would be as romantic as Christmas Eve. At that time, Yang Yi also played a violin song for Murphy. It was called Praise of Love. Murphy's second program was When You're Old, which Yang Yi sang when he proposed to Murphy. Murphy liked this song very much. Yang Yi told her that this song was actually better sung by a female singer. Murphy loved it so much that she couldn't put it down. She even studied the various singing styles of this song for a long time. Only one person still loves your devout soul, loves the wrinkles on your old face. Mo Fei sang seriously. The trembling ending of the song was really full of emotions. Note 1. Yang Yi listened to the song while looking at Murphy's beautiful face. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. When the wind blows, your news, this is the song in my heart. Murphy also looked at Yang Yi affectionately. One hand gently stroked her full chest, and the other hand affectionately reached out to Yang Yi. Yang Yi smiled and took Murphy's hand. He was not satisfied with just listening to the song. He also followed behind Murphy's singing. He gently mixed the notes, adding a bit of human voice and rhythm to this a cappella singing. After the performance, Shi, who was dancing with the pitiful steamed bun, was still not satisfied. She ran into her father's arms, raised her little head, and said, "Mom sings well." "Yes, Mom sings well. You also sing well. Our 2 lovely and elegant ladies sing well." Yang Yi lovingly rubbed Shi's little face and said with a smile, "Hee." Hearing the praise, the little girl smiled with satisfaction. Next, it was time to open the gift and eat the cake. Shi's gift to her father was nothing new. It was still a picture that she drew with a colored pencil. However, in this simple picture, there was a rich plot. This powerful person is Papa. She pointed to a long man with a face and a body in the picture. Then, she pointed to a big, dog-shaped creature in front of her and said, Then Papa defeated the big bad wolf with one punch and rescued Shi and Mom. Where are Shi and Mom? Yang Yi asked with a smile. In fact, he had already seen it. Shi was very serious. She quickly pointed to a big tree in the picture, on which there were two small matchstick men. Shi and Mom are on the tree. There is a big house on the tree, and then Shi and Mom live in the big house. This is a tree house. Where did you learn it? Murphy curiously asked. TV. I saw a big house built on a tree. Then you can live in it. It's very fun. The little girl thought that her parents didn't understand. She quickly stood up and described it to her parents with her small hands. They blew out the candles and ate the cake. It was worth mentioning that the little foodie, Steamed Bun, also wanted to get a share of the cake. Steamed Bun, do you want to eat it too? Cece was a kind and naive little girl. When she saw the steamed stuffed buns crawling around her feet and standing upright on her little skirt, she wanted to share some of the steamed stuffed buns. Although she also liked to eat cake, she was a little reluctant. Steamed Bun can't eat cake. Yang Yi heard the movement. He said to Shi, there is cream in the cake. It can't digest it and will have diarrhea. And this is a chocolate cake. There is chocolate in it. Steamed Bun can't eat it. Eating it will be dangerous to its life. She looked at her father in surprise. After listening, she quickly raised the small piece of cake in her hand and said with a pout, Steamed Bun, you can't eat it. Papa said you can't eat it. That night, the whole villa was filled with laughter until the sticky little goblin was coaxed to sleep by Murphy. Murphy turned her head and pushed Yang Yi, who was smiling wickedly, and said, Go take a bath. You're the only one who hasn't taken a bath yet. Let's not get up. Yang Yi pulled Murphy's hand and laughed. No. Go. Murphy refused. Yang Yi could only turn around and go into the bathroom. When he came out with a towel wrapped around his waist, only she was sleeping soundly on the bed in the big bedroom. Murphy was nowhere to be seen. Where did she go? Yang Yi was very curious. He walked to the bedside and saw a note left by Murphy. Come to the second bedroom. The words were concise and comprehensive. There was even a lipstick mark on it. Yang Yi's blood rushed up. He was curious and excited. He came out of the master bedroom and walked to the second bedroom on the second floor. There seemed to be a wild wolf howling in his heart. A woo. Of course, out of politeness, Yang Yi gently knocked on the door. Come in, why are you still knocking on the door? Murphy's laughter came out. Then I'm coming in. Yang Yi couldn't wait to open the door of the second bedroom. The moment he opened the door, Yang Yi seemed to have entered a dreamlike world. There was no light on, only the light red light on the bedside, like a veil shrouding the room. Not to mention the other decorations in the room, on the big bed, there were thousands of delicate and colorful paper cranes strung together like a mosquito net to form a curtain. It looked like an exquisite veil, waiting for the groom to reach out and lift it. It turned out that the paper cranes that Murphy folded in the past 2 months were all used here. Yang Yi was wondering why Murphy had been folding them, but he didn't see any results. There was one thing that Yang Yi didn't know. In fact, Mo Fei didn't ask anyone to help her with the layout of this room. It was all done by herself. Especially making this paper crane curtain, it took her a lot of time and energy. Through the curtain made of paper cranes, Yang Yi could see the beauty of his dreams. She was sitting sideways on the bed. Her white and slender arms and jade-like legs seemed to be only covered by a piece of red cloth. Her body was faintly discernible, but the most moving thing was the beauty's shyness. For some reason, Yang Yi suddenly thought of Lu Yong's Fighting 100 Flowers. Full of palace, slender waist, age of 10. Described as slim figure, shy of rain and shy of clouds. Note 2. But now was not the time to recite. This is actually your birthday present today. Through the curtain of paper cranes, Murphy said shyly in a low voice, Didn't we not consummate our marriage on the day of our wedding? I thought. Towards the end, Murphy was too embarrassed to continue. Can your body take it? Yang Yi asked a little worriedly. It can, usually after 3 or 4 months. Last time, I specially asked the doctor, as long as it's not too intense. These words were not words of love, but they were better than words of love. This soft whisper was like a song that tugged at the heartstrings. Yang-yi couldn't hold it in. He pulled open the curtain and could finally see clearly. He saw Murphy's red face, as if she was intoxicated by wine. Similarly, he was intoxicated by her eyes and that bright red doo-doo. Actually, some of the desire was mutual. That night, there was no storm. After all, it was only the end of spring and the beginning of summer. The gentle and continuous drizzle was accompanied by the clear croaking of frogs, singing a pestering song until dawn. Chapter 538. A few days after Yang-yi's birthday, it was time for Shi-Shi to hand in her big homework. Early in the morning, Yang-yi sent Shi-Shi to kindergarten. After getting out of the car, Yang-yi carried the large notebook bag and prepared to bring Shi-Shi inside. "Give it to me, Papa, give it to me." The little girl was particularly active. She excitedly jumped around her father and stretched out her small hand. This was her homework, which she worked hard for a month to complete. Naturally, she wanted to hold it herself and couldn't wait to show it to others. "It's a little heavy. You can't carry it, right?" Yang-yi hesitated for a moment. Because they were all large cards, this loose-leaf book was also of a certain scale. Not to mention the cards, even the rings in the middle of the book were heavy. "I can do it." Shi-Shi raised her small head and confidently said to her father, "Papa, I'm super strong." Yang-yi felt funny in his heart, but he still carried the bag to Shi-Shi. The little girl grabbed the bag and took it. It was a little difficult, but Shi-Shi still picked it up. The bag was almost hanging to the ground. Shi-Shi didn't want her work to be dirty, so she lifted the bag higher with her small arm. "Can you do it?" Yang-yi looked at his daughter with some worry. "I can do it." Shi-Shi still answered confidently, even though she felt like she was holding back her strength to speak. Don't say, the little girl was like her father. She usually didn't show it, but there was a surprising strength in her bones. She actually carried the bag from the entrance of the kindergarten to the building, then went up the stairs and finally walked into the classroom of the middle class. Yang-yi, who was worried about Shi-Shi, watched her walk into the classroom. He couldn't believe his eyes. He didn't expect his daughter to have such great endurance. However, Shi-Shi had already gone in, so Yang-yi didn't follow her to praise her. Instead, he greeted Mr. Mu and turned to leave. He still had to rush to Zhongqing City's number 16 middle school, where Yang Huan was taking the college entrance exam. It was the second day of the exam, and there was another day tomorrow. Although Guazi helped to drive Yang Huan to the exam hall, Yang-yi was still a little worried. He wanted to go over to the exam hall. Like the other parents, he waited anxiously for Yang Huan to finish the exam. They still had to return to Springfield Kindergarten. Mr. Mu walked in from outside the classroom. The children who were chattering excitedly did not react. "Children, please return to your seats. The class is about to start." Teacher Mu smiled gently and clapped her hands to greet them. "Ha ha ha ha." The little guys still haven't come out of their excited state. One by one, they cheered even louder. In twos and threes, they ran back to their seats. The classroom was filled with cheers and laughter. It was so loud that it almost overturned the ceiling. Finally, Teacher Mu managed to calm the children down. She smiled and said, "I saw that all the children brought their homework to observe Xiaoyu. Am I right?" "Yes." All the children replied happily with their chests puffed out. Teacher Mu, my homework is over there." Chen Shiyun was still not satisfied. She said loudly to Teacher Mu, as if she was afraid that Teacher Mu wouldn't know. After she started, the other children also pointed to the cabinet in the classroom where their school bags were. They all talked to Teacher Mu about the whereabouts of their homework. "Mine is over there too. My homework is super big." She followed the crowd and shouted enthusiastically. Okay. Everyone, stop for a moment." Teacher Mu did not know whether to laugh or cry. She could only try to control the situation. She said, "I know, but I hope that everyone will listen to me quietly. Later, each child will bring your homework one by one and hand it in. Let everyone see the results of your observation of Xiaoyu. Then, Teacher Mu will comment on it. Okay?" Finally, there was some order in the classroom. Every child showed their own work. Because there was no restriction on how to do the report, the children handed in all kinds of homework. The simplest and most widely used one was like writing a diary. It was a thick diary that recorded the children's stories with Xiaoyu every day. There was an advanced version of this. The homework submitted by Yang Luoqi was probably done under the guidance of the university professor, Yang Gua. It was an A4 softcover book that was used for experimental reports. Mom wrote down the results of her observation. Obviously, these words were written by their parents. However, Teacher Mu read a few paragraphs to each child. This simple record was indeed written in the tone of the children. It was just that the parents had added some embellishment. Therefore, it could not be considered as their parents writing homework for them. There were also parents who directly made a photo album and took pictures of children feeding Xiaoyu. Other than the date written on the back of the photo, there were no other words. However, this observation report was also quite interesting. This child was praised by Teacher Mu. Then next, it's Yongxi's homework. Teacher Mu looked at Shi with a smile. The little girl could not sit still any longer. She answered happily and stood up from her seat. She ran to the cabinet and struggled to bring her homework over to Teacher Mu. "Wow, Yongxi, your homework is so big." Although Teacher Mu had already seen it, he could not help but exclaim when he took it over. He. She twisted her little butt and stood beside Teacher Mu with a smile in embarrassment. Teacher Mu took out a loose-leaf notebook and flipped it open on her table. The more he looked at it, the more the smile in Teacher Mu's eyes became. "Teacher Mu, you have to specially praise our Shi. Although the other children's observation homework is also very good, Shishi's homework is the most interesting and creative that Teacher Mu has ever seen." Teacher Mu roughly looked at a few pages, then he raised his head and said with a smile. It had been a long time since Shishi had experienced being praised by the teacher in public, and it was a serious praise. She looked at Teacher Mu happily. Her small chest was high and her small hands were intertwined behind her back. It could be seen how happy she was. "Everyone, look. In this homework, there are photos of the little goldfish and daily observation records." Teacher Mu raised Shishi's homework and showed it to the children. "This place is also full of patterns and patterns. Wow, it's so beautiful." The children below the stage were all attracted by Shishi's homework and cried out enviously. "I know. Shishi can take photos. She took a lot of photos. She even took photos with me." Lon Xian proudly introduced Shishi to Teacher Mu and the other children with her loud voice. She was proud of Shishi, but she was so happy that it was as if she was the one being praised. Really? Teacher Mu had actually seen Shishi's division of labor in Yang Yi's brief introduction of the process of forming the report on the first page of the loose-leaf notebook. However, she still asked with a smile, "Shishi, you actually know how to take photos? You're so good." "My papa taught me." The little girl was looked at with admiration by so many little friends. She felt happy and a little embarrassed. She waved her two little hands in front of her and explained. "Then Shishi, tell everyone that this big homework was done by you, right?" Teacher Mu said with a smile. I took photos, and then Papa asked me to paste them. Then I drew, Teacher Mu, I spoke with a recording pen, but I don't know how to write." The little girl chattered a lot. "So, it was your father who helped you write these observation reports, right? But I saw that the signature here seems to be written by you." Teacher Mu said with a smile. I can write my name." She said to Teacher Mu with a smile. "Very good. Teacher Mu likes it very much. I hope that other children can learn from Shishi in the future and work hard to complete your homework in more interesting ways. The more you can stimulate your thinking and create innovative children, the more applause you will receive and the higher marks you will get from Teacher Mu." Teacher Mu asked she to sit back down. She still wanted to continue. Unsurprisingly, Shi's big homework, which had pictures and text, was done the best among all the children. She also had the highest participation rate. After grading all the homework, Teacher Mu gave Shi the last little red flower of the semester. Shi finally experienced the joy of success brought about by participation, hard work, and perseverance. The sense of accomplishment that was exchanged for a month of hard work was incomparably precious. Chapter 539. In the cafe, Yang Huan, who was wearing a school bag and dressed like a good student, followed Yang Yi into the cafe amidst the cheers. Seeing this scene, she smiled and waved at everyone. The burden that she had been carrying for a long time seemed to have been lifted. Congratulations, Huan. You've finally overcome the difficulties of the college entrance examination. Murphy walked in front with a bouquet of flowers that she had personally selected. The flowers were bright yellow, light pink, and elegant purple. The combination of the three colors looked very beautiful. Young Huan took the flowers and smiled sweetly at Murphy. Thank you, sister-in-law. Not only Murphy, but also Ding Xiang, Guazi, and other friends congratulated and wished Yang Huan well. After all, the college entrance examination was not easy. Most of them had experienced it before. The hubbub lasted for a while before it died down. Huan, what are you going to do with the rest of the holiday? Murphy sat at the bar and asked curiously, Are you going to travel? Many students chose to travel after graduation. Not only college graduates, but also high school graduates began to travel. This had already become a common phenomenon in society. Yang Huan smiled and said, I've already made a plan. I'll go home first to accompany my parents. Then I'll come back to Zhongqing. When Sister Ding Xiang is on holiday, I'll go to her Miao village with her. When we come back from the mountain, we'll go to the capital to shoot a movie. Just like Xiao Gua last year, she'll play a small role and gain experience. Ding Xiang is going to shoot a movie too? Murphy looked at Ding Xiang in surprise. Ding Xiang waved her hand in embarrassment and said, I'm going with Huan. Sister Ding Xiang is going to be my agent, Yang Huan said with a smile. Sister-in-law, didn't you say that you wanted Sister Ding Xiang to be your agent? She can also use the holiday to learn. Sister Xiaowan is also very supportive of Sister Ding Xiang going with me during the holiday. Murphy didn't care about this. She just smiled and said, So that's how it is. That's good. Ding Xiang can also take care of your life. Yang Yi walked over and overheard their conversation. He smiled and said, Ding Xiang used to do all kinds of part-time jobs and even set up her own stall. She can be considered to have rich social experience. Huan is bold and also has skills, but she doesn't have much social experience. I'm afraid that she will be fooled. With Ding Xiang around, the two of them complement each other. I don't have to worry too much. Yang Huan had mentioned this to Yang Yi before, but Yang Yi was worried that Yang Huan would be alone outside, let alone in that kind of place. Later, Yang Huan said that Ding Xiang would go with her, and he reluctantly agreed. In fact, it was better for Guazi to accompany them. After all, Guazi had been there last year and was more familiar with the area. Moreover, this guy was better at dealing with those people than Ding Xiang. However, Guazi had to shoot a movie during this holiday. He was filming The Fugitive with Yang Yi, so he didn't have time. Moreover, Yang Yi was worried about Guazi. Although they were friends, he felt that it was absolutely impossible for Guazi to be his brother-in-law. This guy, when Yang Yi first met him last year, he was still strolling around Jiangchuan's campus as a high school student. He wanted to see pretty girls with a cheeky smile. What a playboy! Even if Guazi didn't have such feelings for Yang Huan, Yang Yi still had to be careful and keep Guazi away from his sister. I feel that I will be the one protecting Sister Ding Xiang. Yang Huan muttered unhappily. Murphy changed the topic. She still didn't understand and asked, Huan, why don't you go to some tourist spots? For example, the South China Sea or my hometown, Taiwan Island. It's rare for you to have such a big exam. I thought you would let yourself relax. Is it because you don't want to go out? It's okay. Even if your brother doesn't give you money, your sister-in-law will. It's not a bad thing to go out and travel. Murphy thought that Yang Huan was too shy to ask her brother for money. Moreover, Yang Yi did limit Yang Huan's pocket money. He didn't want her to spend lavishly after she had some money. He didn't want her to be captivated by money and become a bad girl. That's not the case. Yang Huan smiled and said to Murphy, "It's not because of my brother. It's mainly because I'm curious about Sister Ding Xiang's hometown and want to have a look. Also, Sister Ding Xiang and I don't have much time. We don't have much time to travel." Murphy still felt that it was a pity. The next day, Yang Yi still came to the coffee shop. Murphy was upstairs helping Yang Huan pack her luggage. She was going to send Yang Huan to take the train back to her hometown. Yang Yi didn't have much to do, so he asked Ding Xiang to make a cup of coffee for him in the coffee shop downstairs. "Ding Xiang, it's a holiday and you're all going out. There aren't many customers during the holiday, so I've decided to renovate it." Yang Yi pointed at the interior of the coffee shop and said to Ding Xiang. He had this idea after the Chinese New Year. At that time, he and she were shopping on the streets of Shanghai. They happened to have a chance to see the decorations of other artistic coffee shops. He suddenly felt that his coffee shop had a lot of room for improvement. However, his relationship with Murphy was suddenly exposed, and there were a lot of troublesome things after that. He put this idea aside. Yang Yi didn't come to the coffee shop as often as before. One of the reasons was that there were more things between him and Murphy. Another reason was that the coffee shop had been closely watched by the paparazzi. Now, the reporters and paparazzi around the coffee shop had all left. After all, Yang Yi didn't appear often. Even if he did, it was just a repeat of his daily life. If it wasn't a particularly shocking piece of news, it wouldn't attract the attention of the audience at all. In addition, Yang Yi and Murphy's relationship was very stable. There was almost no chance to report on them. The couple was too low-key. They didn't even look like celebrities. What was there to report on? It should be known that the entertainment industry was very competitive. Yang Yi didn't want to be on the news. There were a lot of celebrities who pretended to be fake and wanted to be on the headlines. The paparazzi didn't have the patience to play with Yang Yi and his wife every day. Hearing Yang Yi's words, Ding Xiang curiously asked, "Big brother Yang, how do you want to renovate?" Ding Xiang's question was just right. Yang Yi said excitedly, "I plan to change these seats. Did you notice that our coffee shop is made of wood? I want to replace the original fiberglass table with wood, and then change the sofa to the corresponding color. It will be more suitable." "Wouldn't that cost a lot of money?" Ding Xiang said in surprise. "Money isn't a problem. The problem is how to design this coffee shop to look better and have more feelings." Yang Yi laughed. "In the future, I want to come here to read books and drink coffee. In the end, it's a little lacking in feeling at home." Yang Yi had already thought about it. In terms of design, he would use some flowers and plants to separate his exclusive booth. Although it would still be in the same space, other customers wouldn't be able to see if there was anyone or what was happening in the booth, ensuring privacy. At that time, even Murphy could come to read books and listen to music. Staying at home all day wasn't a good thing for pregnant women. "The wallpaper needs to be changed. Then I plan to remove these partitions and replace them with stair-shaped bookshelves that can be planted with flowers. I'll use green plants and flowers to increase the coffee shop's natural atmosphere." Yang Yi had a lot of ideas, but he hasn't completely mixed them together. "I want to make the bar's wall into a whiteboard. Every once in a while, I can draw some pictures on it. Of course, customers are also welcome to doodle on it." The renovations that Yang Yi mentioned were only changes at the level of decoration. There was no need to use a strong smell, paint, and other complicated materials that weren't good for the body. Because there were still customers coming in, Ding Xiang was also busy. So after Yang Yi chatted with Ding Xiang for a while, he returned to his booth. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He picked up a stack of notes and recorded the thoughts that appeared in his mind. At this time, the door of the coffee shop was pushed open again. "Welcome." Ding Xiang raised her head, but she was immediately stunned. She had seen this handsome boy before. Chapter 540. The memory of a straight-A student was indeed good. It was only a few months away from a year, but Ding Xiang could still recognize Tang Kai-tai, who she had seen from afar during the freshman orientation. This young master was still the same as when she first saw him, a little sunny and handsome. But Ding Xiang knew all the bad things this guy had done. Whether it was because he was unhappy with Guazi's part that he deliberately ditched Du Yuanlei's movie, or because Qian Li Chuanshu had been swindled by the contract and was shelved. Ding Xiang now saw that Tang Kai-tai's so-called sunny and handsome face was just a pretense. Ding Xiang's smile faded. However, she was, after all, a waitress, not a boss. The hatred in her heart couldn't be shown on her face. She called out to Tang Kai-tai indifferently. However, Tang Kai-tai's attention wasn't entirely on her. The moment he entered, Tang Kai-tai looked around as if he was looking for someone. In the end, his gaze fell on Yang Yi, who was scribbling on his seat in the corner. Tang Kai-tai's eyes lit up. However, he remained calm and walked towards Ding Xiang. "Miss, a cup of Santos." He even revealed a charming smile and deliberately made small talk. "I've long heard that there's a coffee shop at the back of Jiangchuan that serves authentic coffee. Since I don't have any filming today, I came over to take a look. I never expected that the waitress would be such a beautiful girl." Ding Xiang didn't see through his intentions. She only thought that Tang Kai-tai was just trying to hit on her. As a waitress at the coffee shop at the corner of the street, Ding Xiang had encountered many boys who tried to curry favor with her. After all, the uniform made by Yang Yi was still very attractive. It vividly displayed Ding Xiang's slender figure and slender waist. Some of the boys who liked wheat-colored skin launched a fierce attack on Ding Xiang, asking for her phone number in all kinds of fancy ways. Unfortunately, Ding Xiang did not give any response to their efforts. Ding Xiang nodded her head at Tang Kai-tai. She didn't say a word and coldly turned her head. She began to grind beans. After a while, she brought him a cup of Santos. Tang Kai-tai was a little surprised by Ding Xiang's coldness. His flirting skills had been tested countless times, so why didn't it have any effect on Ding Xiang? However, Tang Kai-tai did not take this matter to heart for the time being because he had more important things to do. He took out the money, picked up the coffee, smiled and nodded at Ding Xiang, then walked in the direction of Yang Yi. "Hey, you can't sit over there." Ding Xiang reacted and quickly walked out of the bar. Just as she was about to tell Tang Kai-tai not to disturb Yang Yi, Tang Kai-tai exclaimed, "Hey, aren't you Yang Yi?" Tang Kai-tai carefully held the steaming hot coffee. He was so shocked that people almost thought that he had scalded his hand. Yang Yi frowned and looked up. Tang Kai-tai didn't know that he had been recognized long ago. He still pretended to express his surprise. "Yang Yi, I've seen you in many reports. You're Murphy's husband and a great songwriter who has written many songs. I'm your fan." This clumsy acting was as bad as his character. Yang Yi signaled to Ding Xiang, who had rushed over with his eyes, telling her not to bother. Then, without batting an eyelid, he continued to watch Tang Kai-tai's performance with ridicule in his heart. "Really, I'm your fan. Although I'm actually an actor and singer, I debuted as a child star, but I'm not a big star." Tang Kai-tai explained, trying to describe his identity. "But I'm really your fan. I like your songs very much. For example, Long Time No See, which you wrote for Channy Jia, I can sing it for you." There were rumors in the industry that Yang Yi would not casually write songs for others. He would only write songs for singers with good singing skills, such as Channy Jia and Murphy, who were top singers. However, for some reason, or perhaps because he had been praised too much, Tang Kai-tai had a crazy confidence in his singing skills. Tang Kai-tai wanted to show off his singing voice in front of Yang Yi, so he took an inch and wanted a mile. He put the coffee on Yang Yi's table, cleared his throat, and prepared to sing. "Stop, stop, stop. Don't sing." Yang Yi still couldn't help it. He didn't want this person to sing his song, so he directly stopped Tang Kai Tai. Tang Kai Tai looked at Yang Yi with a confused face. Don't pretend to meet by chance. From the moment you entered the door, your eyes have been on me. So, you didn't come to drink coffee at all, but specifically to find me, right? Yang Yi simply exposed him. Tang Kai Tai froze for a moment, then smiled awkwardly. Mr. Yang is really observant. You even found out. However, Yang Yi still underestimated Tang Kai Tai's thick skin. He directly sat down in front of Yang Yi and said with a smile, "In this case, let me formally introduce myself. My name is Tang Kai Tai. I'm an actor and also a singer. My father is the head of the Xiongnan Television Bureau. I believe that in the future, we will have many opportunities to cooperate." After being exposed, he proudly showed off his background and looked like he was used to it. Yang Yi couldn't help but think of the deceitful "my father is Li Gang" from his previous life. In comparison, Yang Yi felt that the other young master he knew from the entertainment industry was much cuter. "I know you are Tang Kai Tai, hee. But, I don't have a good impression of you. You should know that." Yang Yi laughed and said coldly, "I invested in the micro-movie Fairy Tale." "Oh, yes, when you were still shooting it, it was called Love Alley. But, your approach at that time was very despicable. So, do you think I will have a good impression of you?" Yang Yi felt that he was already restraining himself by not driving him out. You are talking about this matter? I have my difficulties. Because at that time, there was an emergency at home. Tang Kai Tai heard Yang Yi mention Love Alley, and immediately remembered this matter. But his ability to adapt was not enough. He stammered and found an excuse full of loopholes. He might as well not look for it. Tang Kai Tai said resentfully, "Mr. Yang, I think we shouldn't take the past to heart. You and Murphy's development also needs the support of the TV station. In Xiongnan, that is my dad's place. Even if you go to other TV stations, my dad also has connections. There will always be a time when we work together." This could be said to be a vague threat. "Moreover, I want you to write a song for me, not to deceive anyone. It's a win-win situation." Tang Kai Tai calmed down and said to Yang Yi with a smile. Yang Yi looked at him faintly, "Please leave. I will not write a song for you." "But you haven't heard me sing." Tang Kai Tai was struggling. Yang Yi reached out and said, "No matter how good you are at singing, even better than Chen Yijie, I will not write a song for you." He didn't say the details. Tang Kai Tai's character was too bad, but Yang Yi didn't directly flip the table in this shop. He didn't want Tang Kai Tai to know his relationship with Thousand Miles Chuan Shu. If he knew, it wouldn't be beneficial for Thousand Miles Chuan Shu to make a comeback. Tang Kai Tai's face became a little uncertain. However, in the end, he didn't make a scene like Yang Yi expected. Perhaps he still had a glimmer of hope. Tang Kai Tai stood up resentfully and said, "Mr. Yang, I hope that one day, you can change your mind. Love Alley isn't as simple as you think." As for what wasn't simple, Tang Kai Tai hadn't figured it out yet. After saying that, Tang Kai Tai held back his anger and walked out angrily. Ding Xiang came out from the bar and was almost hit by him. Chapter 541. Yang Huan went home. Although the results of the college entrance examination were not known, it should not be a problem for her to pass the cultural test. After all, Yang Huan used to study in high school according to the normal college entrance examination. Even if her results were not ideal, it was still relative to ordinary students. She usually did test papers and could still exceed the cutoff score of the art test by 100 or 200 points. Therefore, as long as she could perform normally in the college entrance examination, the possibility of her failing was not high. A few days after Yang Huan went home, Murphy finally updated her micro-broadcasting under the numerous requests of her fans. Tomorrow, Yang Yi and I will jointly release 4 singles, or small albums, with a new theme and a breakthrough attempt. However, they are all new songs that no one has heard before. I hope you will like them. Finally, new songs? Judging from the micro-broadcasting, Murphy also had a part in it, not just Yang Yi's singles. Murphy's fans were really surprised and surprised. Some of them could not even believe their eyes. After all, Murphy's last micro-broadcasting was during Yang Huan's college entrance examination. She had completed her big homework and received a little red flower. Murphy was so happy that she took a photo of the little red flower and she observing the results of the little goldfish. Micro-broadcasting was also very interesting, but what the fans wanted to see more was the news of Murphy's new songs. This time, there were 4 new songs. No matter how many songs Murphy could sing, Murphy, who had disappeared for a few months, finally released a new song, which was enough to make the fans go wild with joy. The next day, the online music library was updated at noon. Yang Yi and Mo Fei's 4 new songs also appeared in people's vision on time. We Became Soldiers, To Tell the Truth, were sung by Yang Yi. 15th Moon and Soldier Brother were sung by Murphy. Wait. What the hell were these 4 songs? Why did they look like military songs? No wonder it was called a small album. It turned out to be a small album with a military theme. Not to mention that the fans were a little confused. The media who rushed over after hearing the news were also stunned at the computer. Before this, they had not received any news that Yang Yi would sing these 4 songs, nor did they know how they pulled out 4 military songs. The 2 of them were originally singing pop songs. If they suddenly went to sing military songs, wouldn't that be nonsense? It was as if Andy Lau, who had been singing traditional pop music, suddenly sang Tune Air. It was hard for people to accept. But no matter how crazy Yang Yi and Murphy were to sing military songs, many fans who had been waiting for a long time still doubtfully bought the 4 songs to listen to. For a while, the song with the highest sales was still 15th Moon. This song didn't look like a military song, and it was slightly similar to the title of a pop song. However, in the beginning, it was still a completely military song. The moon of the 15th shines on my hometown, on the border. If they calmed down, it was not difficult for some fans to find that these military songs were not as bad as they thought. In particular, Murphy sang 15th Moon. The unique retro singing style, coupled with Murphy's gentle, mellow, and clear voice, vividly interpreted the tenderness and perseverance of this song. Ah, there is my sweetness in the harvest fruit, and there is also your sweetness. The military medal is half yours, and half mine. Especially the high notes in this section, they were high but not sharp, high but not harsh. She was able to perform the guttural sounds that ordinary people would not be able to sing with ease. If 15th Moon was a retro song, then Brother Soldier had an additional layer of folk elements. Moreover, in this song, Mo Fei's singing method of raising her voice was even more amazing. Soldier brother who wants me to die. From the first sentence, Murphy began to raise the pitch of her voice to the level that would give people goosebumps. If it had to be described, it could only be said that it was as high-pitched as a swona, and it was so high-pitched that it almost didn't drop. It was as if her voice was such a voice. It was good to listen to, but the fans were also shocked by the lyrics of this song. In any case, 15th Moon had some literary talent, but Soldier Brother was almost as straightforward as some folk songs. For example, the lyrics at the back, such as, I really want to send him a ball of fire, and Soldier Brother, a star in my heart, and Sister wants to cross the river, who will push me. Didn't it have the same effect? Of course, when Mo Fei sang Soldier Brother, there was no explicit provocation. She used simple and plain words to describe how difficult it was for the wife to take care of the family when the soldiers were stationed outside. She also described how the wife still had tender feelings for her sweetheart when she took on the responsibility. At night, he is the dream on my pillow. During the day, he is the song in my mouth. Although Murphy sang the lyrics in a high-pitched tone, through special pronunciation, the strong feelings in the lyrics were conveyed in this song. Especially the small explosion of tone in the word pillow, it was even more tender and made people's hearts tremble. Suddenly, the image of the soldier's partner in the whole song suddenly came alive. The fans who were listening attentively could feel it. It was as if at this moment, they could see a little wife holding a letter from her sweetheart under the dim yellow light of the night. She was crying and smiling happily at the same time. Whether it was the affectionate 15th moon, the strong and affectionate soldier brother, whether it was the imposing we soldiers, or the firm and tender to tell the truth, these songs reflected the singing skills of Yang Yi and Murphy incisively and vividly. Fans who really liked listening to good songs and appreciating the meaning of music would be able to find something they liked in these songs after letting go of their initial misunderstandings and listening carefully. However, not all fans were fans, and not all fans were old. There were still a considerable number of fans who were young and listened to the songs for fun, or felt that Yang Yi and Murphy should sing romantic pop songs. They had come for the fame of the two of them, only to hear 4 old military songs, which really annoyed them. So on the first day, under the comments of these songs, there were a lot of bad reviews that gave very low scores. Abandon the pit, return the goods, you can sing any song, but you have to change your style and sing some rubbish military songs. Is it Yang Yi and Murphy, you husband and wife, who are arrogant, or we can't raise the big knife? After waiting for a few months, you played such a trick on us? Military songs are really not good to listen to. After listening to a few sentences, I'll turn it off. I'm here to advise other fans who want to buy it not to be deceived. The so-called small album this time has 4 songs that are very bad. It's not the original classic. It is not worth our money to buy it. Of course, these extreme bad reviews only accounted for a part. Although some fans did not like the 4 songs very much, they still gave more pertinent comments. I have to say that the quality of the songs written by Yang Yi is still good. Murphy and Yang Yi's singing is also very wonderful. It's a pity that I don't like military songs very much, so I can't appreciate it. Murphy subverts her own soldier brother. In fact, it's very interesting to listen to it with your eyes closed. The high notes are very addictive. It's just that when I think of the affectionate song Listen to the Sea, that she once sang, I can't accept this military song. Give it a moderate review. Among these comments, there were some who expressed that they were very satisfied and liked these songs. There were even some fans who might be veterans or had a military background who gave eloquent and lengthy comments. It was as if these 4 songs had triggered some special feelings and memories in them. These 4 songs attracted the attention of countless people on the first day of release, and the mixed reviews were really surprising. The media reporters knew that the onlookers were eager to know the reason why Murphy and Yang Yi made such a subversive change, so they also dug up the news behind it. However, Yang Yi and Murphy still could not be interviewed. What should they do? It didn't matter. If there was no news, they could make it up. The next day, a considerable part of the media dug out a possibility through some of Yang Yi's recent itineraries. Releasing 4 military songs, Yang Yi and Murphy did not want to make a breakthrough in music. They were actually just promoting the TV series of the same name, Soldier's Assault, adapted from Yang Yi's works. Yes, in June, didn't Yang Yi attend the press conference for the completion of Soldier's Assault? In their eloquent description, it seemed that Yang Yi and Murphy were brewing a big conspiracy. By suddenly releasing 4 military songs, they stirred up the feelings of the soldiers, so as to pave the way for the promotion of Soldier's Assault. However, they were also criticizing, isn't Yang Yi a bit too much? The People's Army is serious and inviolable. How can you be allowed to stir up people's feelings for the soldiers to achieve your purpose of profit? It seemed that this statement was reasonable, and some onlookers did not like this kind of hype. Yang Yi and Murphy, who were still in the dark, were suddenly pushed to the forefront of the storm. Chapter 542. Mo Xiaowan naturally wouldn't sit back and watch the media stir up trouble. It just so happened that the public relations department of Hua Yi Brothers was newly established, so this was an opportunity to test it. The night the public opinion appeared in the media, the public relations department managed by Xiao AI released a statement through the official Phoebe Studio micro-broadcasting. The 4 new songs released by Yang Yi and Murphy have nothing to do with the promotion of Soldier's Assault, nor are they hype like some media outlets said. The reason why they released 4 military songs is because Yang Yi used to be a soldier, and he wants to create some military songs for his comrades in the old army. At the same time, Murphy and Yang Yi's accounts also reposted this micro-broadcasting. This was their first clarification. Interestingly enough, maybe the staff around him reminded Chan Fengchen. The next day, the old man also opened his own micro-broadcasting account and applied to become a verified VIP. The old man was old but not old. He was very skilled at operating the computer. Even though it was just a finger tap, he still typed out what he wanted to say. He reposted this micro-broadcasting and said humorously, "Xiao Yang, don't block my words. After listening to your and Murphy's 4 songs, I want to use them as theme songs and TV series interludes." Of course, the old man also sent a micro-broadcasting to clarify for Yang Yi. This is indeed a misunderstanding. People who are familiar with Yang Yi will know how lazy he is. Forget about hype, he doesn't even want to participate in ordinary promotional activities. As the original author of Soldier's Assault, he didn't want to come to the press conference before the start of filming. He was invited several times before he could come to the press conference. Let me ask you, how could such an outstanding author, who is above the common populace, do something even more outrageous like moral kidnapping? If Yang Yi and Murphy's self-clarification wasn't very convincing, then Chen Fengchen's statement was extra powerful. The media's criticism of Yang Yi began to die down. Instead, some quick-witted reporters abandoned their reports on Yang Yi's new song and ran to Beijing to look for Chen Fengchen. Chen Fengchen was much easier to interview than Yang Yi. The old man had no choice but to pick a media outlet that he was more familiar with and accepted their interview. In this interview, the main topic was still Soldier's Assault, but the reporter still asked about Yang Yi. Chen Fengchen was still very willing to tell them about how he met Yang Yi. After all, Yang Yi and Murphy's relationship had already been made public. There was no need to keep some things that couldn't be said back then a secret. Yang Yi and Chen Fengchen's acquaintance was actually Chen Fengchen's personal visit. This big news made the reporters extremely excited. Chen Fengchen was a famous director and was highly respected, yet Yang Yi had actually asked him to look for him. Fortunately, Chen Fengchen also knew that some reporters like to beat around the bush. He went straight to the point. "Don't say that I visited him 3 times. At that time, Yang Yi didn't know who I was and didn't know why I went to look for him. I saw that Little Yang's work was so good that I was worried that others would take away the film and television rights. So, I directly asked the publisher for Little Yang's address and found him. Speaking of which, it's quite interesting. Yang Yi didn't recognize me, but Murphy was there at the time. She sang the ending song of one of my TV series and recognized me. When Chen Fengchen thought about it, he could not help but chuckle. Moreover, when I saw Yang Yi, I was a little surprised because I thought that the author who could create a work like Drawing Sword should be an old man like me who is more sensitive to the history of the war in the past. I didn't expect it to be a young man. He's too young. Chen Fengchen sighed. Then, Director Chen, what do you think of Yang Yi? Because he rarely appears in front of the media, many fans are eager to know what kind of person he is. The reporter followed Chen Fengchen's words and asked. Chen Fengchen thought for a moment and said, Little Yang is a very talented child, whether it's his musical creation or his literary creation. Am I right? I don't need to say that. Everyone can see it. However, I also want to say that Little Yang is a relatively low-key and hard-working person. Being low-key is an excellent quality that our impetuous entertainment industry lacks. Everyone knows that it's too easy to make money in the entertainment industry. There are more than 1 billion Chinese people in mainland China. The market is too big and the pie is too big. Just a little bit of it and you can make a lot of money. That's why too many people are rushing in, but they just want to make money. Scandals and hype. Today, they're hyping up the little fresh meat, tomorrow, they're hyping up the pretty starlets. As long as they can increase their traffic, they're not afraid of not making money. However, what kind of works can they produce? Can they stand the test of time? Chen Fengchen had long been disgusted by the impetuous atmosphere of the entertainment industry in the new era. This time, he used his evaluation of Yang Yi to express his feelings. I won't talk about anything else. Let's talk about that night, that was very popular last month, right? I have an assistant who was listening to the song too. The lyrics were unbearable to the ear. I have no idea how that singer wrote such a song. Look, I don't even remember his name. Chen Fengchen said. Zhu Jie was unwittingly implicated, and Chen Fengchen didn't know that the instigator behind this was the Yang Yi he was praising. Chen Fengchen continued to speak frankly. He used Yang Yi as a positive example. I saw that some media outlets were surprised by Yang Yi's creative speed. However, with such a vigorous creative state, have you ever thought about how much effort he put in behind it? If he was like those little fresh meats, showing off in front of the media every day, unable to complete his daily schedule, how would he have the energy to create? It's precisely because he's low-key and hard-working that he was able to create so many classic works that people can't bear to part with. Director Chen, do you also like Yang Yi's new songs? The reporter asked. Of course. When I heard these songs, my mind was suddenly filled with memories of my days in the army many years ago. I'm already in my 60s, yet I still cry like a child, Chen Fengchen lamented without hiding anything. Chen Fengchen's interview hadn't been reported yet, but Yang Yi's fans, who were slow to react online, finally heard Yang Yi's new songs. It had to be said that among these fans, most of them had followed Yang Yi since Soldier's Assault, so they had a special interest in the army. After hearing these military songs, they felt very emotional. Naturally, they weren't like ordinary fans. They especially admired these songs and couldn't help but recommend them to their friends. And very quickly, they found out from Yang Yi's personal website that the media was attacking Yang Yi. Immediately, they were unhappy and started to support Yang Yi. What do you know? Yang Yi singing military songs couldn't be more suitable, okay? Even old Mu, who had a meal with Yang Yi, said that Yang Yi personally confirmed that he was a soldier. He was a soldier, so why is singing military songs a publicity stunt? They're criticizing such good songs. Is there something wrong with the music industry's brain? Nowadays, the pop music industry seems to have less and less room for the existence of old songs, but I like Yang Yi's old songs. I hope that friends who share the same interest can support Yang Yi. Don't let tradition become history. The support of Chen Fengchen and many older artists who liked Yang Yi's songs, coupled with more and more people who were attracted by the excellence of these songs, finally shook off the criticism that everyone wanted to get involved in. Originally, the Southwest Military Region's art troupe and publicity department were still preparing a publicity plan for Yang Yi. They also knew that there was a misunderstanding in the media and had received instructions from their superiors to clear Yang Yi's name. But before they could slowly respond, the direction of public opinion in the report had taken a 180-degree turn. The media was praising Yang Yi and Murphy for their brave breakthrough. The music critics were surprisingly unanimous and gave the 4 songs very high praise. Military songs were going to be popular. Chapter 543. Although the music industry was stirred up by Yang Yi and Murphy's new songs, it seemed that many media outlets were reporting on these 4 songs, and it seemed that many people were also paying attention to these 4 songs, but the resurgence of military songs was actually an illusion. After all, the times were moving forward and developing. Among young people, there were only a few who liked these retro songs. Although the best song 15th Moon had unintentionally borrowed the wind of public opinion to reach the top 10 of the new song sales chart, it was only limited to that. It was weak and gradually fell with the decline in popularity. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Yang Yi and Murphy didn't participate in any chart shows at all, didn't accept variety show invitations, and lacked publicity. What's more, they were overwhelmingly praised by the music critics. It turned out that the music critics' vision was still a little different from the public's. In the end, the 4 songs were ranked in the top 30, and the sales were not bad. They couldn't reproduce the legend of Yang Yi's previous songs being popular. However, Yang Yi and Murphy were still very satisfied with this result. We are not RMB. How can we get everyone's love? As long as there are people who like our music, and so many people think that our 4 songs are good, that's enough. Murphy comforted Mo Xiaowan. Mo Xiaowan was disappointed with this result for a long time, because this small album was Murphy's first battle after independence. It didn't become a hit, and it always gave people the feeling that Murphy had made a bad move. There were indeed some media outlets who wanted to see the world in chaos, mocking Murphy's departure from Tianmei. They even used this as a pretext to make a fuss. Didn't she not accept media interviews? Didn't she like to keep a low profile? As a star, she didn't want any exposure, and she still wanted results? Hee hee. Of course, they couldn't ridicule her so directly. Not only did they beat around the bush, but they also gave many examples to comment on, but the meaning was expressed. But so what? It was unknown whether Yang Yi and Murphy regretted changing, or still doing their own way in the entertainment industry. Of course, these were things that happened later. Ever since the release of the song, there had been constant turmoil outside. But in their villa, it was still calm and peaceful. They were still happily living their lives. Yang Yi and Murphy did not bring the outside influence into the house. Early in the morning, Yang Yi smiled and said to Shi, who was at home during the summer vacation, "Daddy will teach you how to swim today." Summer came later this year. After the summer heat, the sun seemed to have woken up. High in the sky, it shone brightly on the earth and gradually began to emit its majesty. After the temperature rose, not to mention putting on a jacket for Shi, even if the little girl wore a vest and swung outside, she would be sweating profusely when she came back. In such hot weather, Yang Yi finally remembered that they had a swimming pool at home. After asking the property management staff to come over and clean the pool, Yang Yi filled the pool with water since he had nothing to do today. He was ready to enjoy the convenience of a private pool with his family. "Swim. Swim. I'm going to swim." Hearing her father's words, she could not hold back her joy. She ran around the house happily and giggled incessantly. Steamed Bun, who did not know the truth, also followed behind the little master. His tongue was hanging out and he jumped around happily. After a while, Shi, wearing a one-piece swimsuit for children, happily appeared by the pool. Cece's swimsuit was a little conservative. It was like a small skirt, but it was very slim fit, showing off the little girl's slender arms and legs. Her belly was round and bulging like the other children's. It was very cute. She ran so fast that Murphy couldn't stop her. As she ran, she giggled and said, "Mama, Papa, come quickly. You can't go into the water directly. You have to wait for Daddy to teach you." Murphy's belly was a little bigger. She was also wearing a swimsuit, and it could be seen that her body had become a lot fuller. For this reason, she felt embarrassed. If it were not for the fact that there were no outsiders in their private pool, she would not have come out to swim. After all, women love to be beautiful. Who would want to be seen by others when she was a little fat now? However, Murphy could not take care of Shi. She just splashed water on the side. After slowly adapting to the water temperature, she went into the pool and swam slowly by herself. Pregnant women could still swim, as long as they paid attention to some small problems. Moreover, swimming was good for the body and the future delivery. Yang Yi, who turned off the water, appeared by the pool after a while. He was wearing loose swimming trunks, but his figure was undeniably good. From the back, he had a strong back and a bare waist, and his shoulders were wide and round. From the front, his thick chest and strong abdominal muscles were even more amazing. "Come, Shi. First, do some stretching with Daddy to warm up. When you swim later, you won't get cramps easily." When Yang Yi saw the little girl's impatient look, he knew that she wanted to get into the water quickly, but he still insisted. "Okay then." She was a little disappointed, but she was still full of expectations and warmed up with her father. Fortunately, when she learned the sword dance, Yang Yi had already taught Shi how to warm up. After a while, after warming up, Yang Yi took Shi slowly into the water. There was no swimming ring. This was Shi's first time swimming in the water, but Yang Yi just wanted his daughter to get rid of the dependence of the swimming ring and learn how to swim quickly. Yang Yi went into the water first, then took Shi's hand and let her go down the stairs step by step. This private swimming pool was full of water and had a depth of 1.4 meters, which was only up to the chest of ordinary adults, not to mention Yang Yi and Murphy, who were not ordinary people. Yang Yi was not satisfied in such a pool, but this level was still very dangerous, because it was enough to reach Shi's little head. It was time to go into the water. At first, Shi was full of interest, and her face was full of excitement, but as the stairs slowly went down, the water gradually reached her chest, and the little girl's smile disappeared. "Papa, I'm scared." She went down another step and suddenly found that the water had reached her neck. She hurriedly took a step back and looked at her father in panic. She was very happy to play in the water, but the little girl never thought that the water would be so deep. Although she didn't know what the consequences would be, the natural fear in her heart had already spread. "Don't be afraid. When you are about to choke, Daddy will pick you up. Why don't you try and see if you can float by kicking the water?" Yang-yi advised. I don't want to." She withdrew her hand and gently shook it in front of her chest. She was in a dilemma. She was reluctant to leave the swimming pool. Yang-yi frowned. It didn't seem to work. Next to them, Murphy, who was slowly backstroke, looked up at Yang-yi and said with a smile, "You have to let Shi get used to the water slowly. I told you to buy a swimming ring for her, but you didn't believe me." She didn't need a swimming ring. Her father was her daughter's biggest guarantee. Yang-yi walked over, bent down, and said with a smile, "How about this? Daddy will carry you into the water, and then keep supporting you. You won't drink any water, okay?" Yang-yi was unconsciously infected by Shi's bad habit of abusing the word, then. Shi hesitated for a moment, but her desire to play in the water overcame her fear. She stretched out her small arms, tightly hugged her father's neck, and let him carry her into the water. Yang-yi half sat and half swam, soaking in the water with Shi. The little girl kicked her little feet randomly, but she couldn't reach the bottom. Sometimes she kicked her father's waist. Papa, don't let go. I'm scared." Shi's feet were not on the ground, so she felt very insecure. She tightly hugged her father's neck and said nervously, Chapter 544. Yang-yi suddenly had an idea. He stretched out one leg and bent it so that she could stand on it. Then, he coaxed, "All right, relax. You can't hold on to Daddy's neck when you swim. Anyway, Daddy will hug you and won't let you fall into the water." She was skeptical. She hesitantly let go of one hand, but her other hand was still on her father's neck. Her small body trembled in the water, as if she would slip if she stepped on her father's thigh. Yang-yi's two big hands almost wrapped around the little girl's small waist. Although it was an exaggeration, this supporting force made Shi's body as steady as a rock in the water. She wouldn't slip as she thought. The slightly surging water caused by Murphy's swimming was like a huge wave in Shi's eyes. It didn't send her flying. The little girl felt a little relieved. Although she was nervous, she couldn't help but use her small hand to pat the water. "Papa." The water splashed, and some even flew onto Shi's face. Hee. The little girl couldn't help but turn to look at her father. Although she was so nervous that she frowned a little, her big eyes were full of smiles. She seemed to be having a lot of fun. This was much more fun than the little water in the bathtub. After all, a swimming pool was a swimming pool. Shi, look at Mommy. Murphy was a good swimmer. She was breaststroke just now, but now that she turned over, it became backstroke. She floated on the water leisurely and could even turn her head slightly to greet Shi. Mom is so amazing. She stood on her father's lap and looked at her mother enviously. It wasn't that she appreciated how good Murphy was at swimming. The little girl was just envious that Murphy could play so freely in the water, unlike her, who could only gently pat the water and didn't dare to make waves. It was as if she was afraid that she would be swallowed by the water if she moved too much. "You can do it too. Come on." Yang-yi saw that she was getting used to it, so he didn't dawdle. He hugged her waist with one hand and held her small head with the other. He held her horizontally so that her head was slightly above the water while the rest of her body was immersed in the water. It was simple and rough. As Yang-yi expected, she was so scared that she closed her eyes and cried. Her small hands and feet flopped in the water. She was too scared. At that moment, she thought that her father would leave her in the water, would abandon her. She didn't care that her head was still above the water. She closed her eyes and cried. It was also due to her survival instincts. The little girl flapped her arms and legs very hard, sometimes splashing the water with her small hands and feet. Fortunately, she's heads she wouldn't fall. Seeing Yang Yi teaching Cece like this, Mo Fei stood up nervously in the water. It's okay. Don't worry. Yang Yi smiled and shook his head at Murphy. Then, he didn't do anything else. He just gently coaxed Shi. Why are you crying? Isn't Daddy still here? Look, Daddy is still protecting you. When Yang Yi learned how to swim in his previous life, there was no one to teach him. In order to survive, he, who was only a few years older than Shi, gritted his teeth and jumped into the Amazon River. He struggled in the rapids and eventually survived and learned how to swim. Compared to that time, Yang Yi was very gentle when he taught Shi how to swim. From the beginning to the end, he didn't blame her and even coaxed her slowly. He even supported Shi's body so that she could learn how to swim in a safe state. However, Yang Yi still overestimated his daughter. Shi was a little girl. She wasn't a thick-skinned little man. This scare made she cry uncontrollably. It was as if the grievances in her heart were about to get stuck in her throat. How could Daddy not want Shi? After letting Shi struggle for a while, Yang Yi realized that his daughter's crying couldn't be coaxed. He was also worried that the little girl would get cramps. He had no choice but to straighten her up, drag her little butt, and hold her in his arms. In Daddy's arms, she finally felt a sense of security. At this moment, the little girl was like a frightened kitten. She curled up in her father's chest and sobbed softly. One of her little hands was still holding onto her father's arm. Okay. Why are you so scared? Daddy told you that Daddy will protect you. You don't have to worry. You just have to swim like Mommy. Yang Yi coaxed her helplessly. He gently pulled down Shi's little hand that was rubbing her eyes. Don't rub your eyes. Your hands are dirty now. Rubbing your eyes will rub the germs in. Daddy doesn't want Shi anymore. The little girl finally opened her golden mouth. She choked with sobs and said sadly, Why don't you want Shi? Daddy has always been protecting you. Don't you feel it? Daddy is also holding your little head. I won't let you choke on the water. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It did take a little effort to coax Shi. But fortunately, after the little girl was coaxed, her good ability to accept things was also reflected. Just now, there was indeed no danger, so they didn't dawdle from the beginning. Under Daddy's coaxing, the little girl finally tried to float on the water with Daddy's support. After she adapted to this feeling, she played happily. Now, this posture of splashing water was much more interesting than the previous one. Moreover, she was still using her hands and feet. Her little feet also made a big splash. Hee. The little girl tried hard to raise her little head, but she couldn't help but let out a pleasant laughter. That's right? Daddy didn't lie to you. Daddy is protecting you. How could I let you be eaten by the water? Yang Yi said with a smile. The saying of being eaten by the water was created by she herself. Although at this time, she didn't have time to respond, Yang Yi believed that his daughter, who was screaming in fear just now, should have confidence in him. Now, he wanted to let she feel the feeling of being in the water. When the little girl was a little tired and didn't want to move, Yang Yi took her to the beach chair by the pool and sat down. Murphy, who was tired from swimming just now, went ashore to drink water, came over with she's bath towel and covered the little girl's wet body. Although the weather was very hot, it was easier to catch a cold when wet. A child's resistance was not as good as an adult's. Is it fun? Murphy scratched she's little nose and asked softly with a smile. It's fun. I like to swim. She's little face was very excited. She couldn't help but gesticulate with her mother and said, I can draw water. I can draw water very high. This is not called swimming. This is called playing with water. Murphy couldn't help but laugh and said, When you swim, you should be like your mother. You don't need your father to carry you. Look at your father, he can swim so well. After settling Shishi down, Yang Yi also dived into the pool and swam back and forth a few times to satisfy his craving. Shishi looked at her father with her big eyes. His figure in the water was like an arrow leaving the bow. His posture was not standard compared to Murphy's, but every time he swung his legs and arms, it was full of strength and beauty. Papa is so powerful. The little girl looked at him with admiration and muttered to herself. Yang Yi didn't forget that he was not playing with water today. He was responsible for teaching Shi how to swim. Therefore, after swimming for a while, he came out of the pool and walked in front of Shi. Papa, I want to be like you. I want to swim super fast, go there, and then go, swim back. The little girl didn't seem to be tired anymore. She was full of energy as she jumped around in front of her father and chattered. Okay, then Daddy will teach you how to swim now. But first, you have to learn the swimming posture and learn the freestyle. After you learn it, you can swim as fast as Daddy. Yang Yi said with a gratified smile. Of course, swimming is not something that can be learned overnight, but this summer is still long. Chapter 545. The movie, The Fugitive, finally started shooting. Today, most of the crew arrived at a private clinic in Tingshan district. Although it was the first day of shooting, the progress of the shooting wouldn't start with the prison scene. After all, there were children in this movie, so the priority should be to finish the children's scenes first, so that it wouldn't be difficult to arrange later. Shi also came to the set with her father. Many of the people shooting the movie were familiar faces, such as Wang Chao, who was in charge of the camera, and Zhu Liang, who was in charge of the lighting. They were all part of Du Yuanlei's team. After many years of cooperation, they were very familiar with each other. Wang Chao and Zhu Liang's skills were also trustworthy. Long En, the makeup artist from the fairy tale crew, was demoted this time. She was the assistant of the newly hired makeup artist, Xiao Ran. The makeup for this scene was more complicated. For example, Guazi needed to be made to look older. Long En couldn't do such a complicated makeup technique, so Long En had to learn from Xiao Ran. In the past, Shi often went to the set of Fairy Tale with her father. These familiar faces made Shi feel familiar with the environment. On the contrary, today, because Mo Fei wanted to see her daughter act for the first time, Cici was very lively with her parents around. Sometimes, she would hold her father's hand curiously and ask him to take her to see the structure of the clinic. Sometimes, she would even take the initiative to run to Geng Xia and look at him curiously. Today, the little girl was dressed very seriously. Because they were going to shoot the movie, Yang Yi and Murphy had already changed Shi into a costume at home. In fact, it was a primary school uniform that Yang Yi had asked someone to tailor for Shi. It was a white-collared shirt, a blue cashmere button-up jacket, and a long blue school uniform skirt that hung down to her feet. She had only put on her coat when she entered the private clinic with an air-conditioned environment. However, on the whole, the little girl's cuteness had a scholarly air to it. She was charming and made people feel pity for her. The little girl's shiny black hair was straightened by Murphy, like a waterfall hanging down her back. Under the light, it reflected a beautiful and smooth color. The bangs on her forehead had also been trimmed neatly. At first glance, the little girl had a strict temperament that did not match her age. Of course, it couldn't be seen now. She was blinking her big eyes with a smile on her face. She was moving around like a lively and cute little elf. If Du Yuanlei hadn't arranged for Shi to audition, and the little girl in the audition had shown Wang Mai's fear, apathy, and pitifulness, Yang Yi would have found it hard to believe that Shi could play the role well. "Hello, little girl." "Hello." Geng Xia was a little restless. He scratched his head and greeted Shi with a silly smile. "You're Yang Yi's son, right?" In his nervousness, he even made a slip of the tongue. I'm not a son. I'm a girl. I'm my papa's daughter. My papa is Yang Yi." When she heard the problem, she couldn't help giggling. The strange feeling between her and this little uncle suddenly disappeared a lot. Yes, you're your father's daughter. Gung Sha said with self-blame, look at me. I'm so nervous that I'm not right. She didn't answer him this time. Instead, she was thinking about her previous question. She looked at Gung Sha curiously and said, Uncle, are you going to play my papa in the movie? My papa is my real papa, and then my papa said that you have to pretend to be my papa, but only in the movie. 2 days ago, when Yang Yi told she the story of the role she was going to play, the little girl was still struggling for a long time. It was also when Yang Yi explained clearly that Wang Mai in the movie was not the real her, and that Wang Mai's father in the movie was not her father, that she understood and accepted this arrangement. Therefore, when Cici was talking to Gung Sha today, she went through a lot of trouble and said a lot of things. It was rare that the little girl didn't mess up such a talkative thing. In her heart, it was obvious that she was very clear about these relationships. But this tongue twister of, my papa is not my papa, made Gung Sha dizzy. He scratched his ears and cheeks in confusion and said awkwardly, I'm sorry little girl, can you say it again? Yang Yi came over, patted Shishi's little head, and said to Gung Sha with a smile, it's okay. She said that you're just the father of her character in the movie. He's not my papa. Cici nodded and added, as if she hadn't had enough. Yes, of course I'm not your father. Your father is Brother Yang. Gung Sha smiled. The first scene was when Wang Li came in through the door with Wang Mai and met the veterinarian grandpa Hao Shi, who had just woken up and came downstairs. The main dialogue was done by Gung Sha, who played Wang Li, and the old professor of Jiangchuan Film Academy, who played Hao Shi. Shi, who played Wang Mai, didn't have any lines. However, this role was indeed like that. In this movie, Wang Mai basically didn't need to speak. She only needed to act with her eyes and actions. Although she had a good memory, she didn't need to memorize lines, which was also a kind of liberation for the little girl's ability. Okay, everyone, take your places. Du Yuanlei held a loudspeaker in her hand and shouted. When the shooting was about to start, Yang Yi squatted down and tidied up Shishi's clothes for the last time. Murphy was also on the side, stroking her big belly, and anxiously cheering for Shishi. Shishi, don't be nervous. You can do it. Mom believes in you. There's no need to be nervous. Just act like you did in the audition. Dad thinks you're very good. Yang Yi also gently put his hand on Shishi's little shoulder and said softly. The little girl blinked her big eyes. It was unknown whether it was because she had grown up a little or some other reason, but she didn't act like last year. Her little face was tight, but she stuck out her little tongue, a little mischievous giggle, and said, I'm not nervous. However, it was impossible for her not to be nervous at all. When Gung Sha came over and brought Shishi to the door to prepare for the shoot, Shishi, who didn't see her parents, finally realized that she was going to shoot a scene and had to face those big cameras. The little girl gently clenched her little fists, and a nervous expression began to show on her little face. It's okay. The director said just now, you just need to follow me and walk in with your back facing the camera. You just need to look at Teacher Xiang. Gung Sha was very attentive in preparing for his scenes. Hence, although he was also a little nervous, he had memorized the lines by heart. Moreover, as he had filmed many scenes before, he could be considered to have some experience. When he saw she lowering her little head slightly, he knew that she was the same as when he first started filming, so he kindly comforted her. She raised her head and blinked her big eyes. Although children were not well versed in worldly affairs, their pure hearts were like a mirror that could clearly reflect other people's attitude toward them. Cici could feel that this short uncle was helping her out of the goodness of his heart. The little girl's voice was soft as she responded. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just follow my footsteps and stay behind me. Uncle will help you. Gung Sha seemed to have also felt Shishi's trust, and he instantly felt a sense of responsibility. All right, let's start. The director's voice was heard. Let's go. Gung Sha said in a low voice. He held the teddy bear under his arm and carried a black luggage bag as he pushed the door open and walked in. She hurriedly followed in small steps. It was her first time shooting such an important scene. How would Shi's performance be? Chapter 546. When she came in, she couldn't help but look in the direction of her parents. Young E and Murphy were sitting on the chairs. In fact, they were more nervous than she, as if this performance was a big test. But when they saw she looking over, they both smiled and gave she a thumbs up to encourage her. However, the little girl couldn't take it when she looked. The director called for a stop. The reason was obvious. Just a single glance would reveal a flaw. There was nothing there. Even the introverted and autistic shouldn't be looking around like that. Moreover, she's face was also in the camera. When she saw her parents, her subconscious expression of joy was also wrong. Du Yuanlei didn't blame she. She was worried that the child's ability to accept the performance was weak. She walked over and praised and comforted she for a while. "It's okay. Your performance was very good. It's just that in this scene, everyone had a little flaw. Not only you, but Uncle Gung Sha and Grandpa Xiang also didn't act very well. Let's work together and act it well, okay?" She didn't have a glass heart. At first, the little girl felt that it was her own problem and blamed herself. Now that the responsibility was shared and the atmosphere of teamwork was created, she was also full of responsibility and nodded her head. As for the specific problems, she understood from the director's patient explanation. In the end, Yang Yi chimed in and concluded, "There are only 2 points. When you enter the door later, don't look at your parents. Anyway, your parents are here to watch your performance. I believe that you will definitely perform well. The second point is that you have to play Xiao Mai. She won't speak or smile. She, you know how to play the role of Xiao Mai." In fact, this scene didn't require much expression control, because she's back was facing the camera. But Yang Yi still hoped that she could have a little professionalism, so he had more requirements. "I know," she said eagerly. "I'm going to act with Uncle Gung Sha. Papa, Mom, bye." Wow, so enthusiastic. After she left, Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other in surprise. They didn't know that she was bursting with a sense of responsibility. She mustered all her strength and wanted to act well in this scene. She wanted to work hard together with Uncle Gung Sha and Grandpa Xiang. There were no more problems with this shot. She followed Gung Sha into the room and stood where she was supposed to stand. She didn't turn her head to look around and just looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big, worried eyes. She stood there like an obedient girl. Pass. After Gung Sha and Xiang Zhonglei finished their simple conversation, Du Yuanlei nodded in satisfaction. Next shot. While Wang Chao and the others were changing positions with the camera, Du Yuanlei took the time to give Shi a thumbs up, praising her good performance just now. For children, the director was like a teacher. Their praise was like receiving a little red flower. After she saw Sister Du's thumbs up, her little face suddenly bloomed with a bright smile, and her heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. Next was the conversation between Gung Sha and Xiang Zhonglei. She didn't need to appear in this scene, so she could go back to her parents' side to rest. Very good shot. Yang Yi patted the head of the little girl who threw herself into his arms and laughed. He said with a smile, "Dad can't believe that you actually finished shooting this scene so quickly. You only had 1 NG. What do you mean by NG? She blinked her big eyes and asked curiously. It means that you only need to reshoot it once. Do you know that your Uncle Guazi sometimes NGs a few times when he's filming? Even more than 10 times. Yang Yi explained to Shi. Then, am I very powerful? The little girl's eyebrows were curved as she smiled. Her sparkling eyes were as beautiful as little stars, but she was a little embarrassed as she asked in a low voice. Very good. Yang Yi praised. But you have to keep it up, you can't be arrogant. Murphy reminded her. The one who acted better was Gung Sha. In fact, the Wang Li played by Gung Sha was quite different from the Pali played by Martin Schott in Yang Yi's memory. However, his simple and honest face, as well as his somewhat reserved, embarrassed, and self-abased smile, could better reflect the character's situation. It could be said that Gung Sha was almost acting as himself. The scene between Gung Sha and the veteran teacher Xiang was also very enjoyable for the onlookers. One played the role of Wang Li, who was in dire straits, and the other played the role of the old veterinarian who suffered from paranoia, making people forget what he looked like in the past. Under their lead, Shi's subsequent scenes were also more successful. Xiang Zhonglei smiled kindly and bent down. As if he was playing with a cat, he stretched out his hand, bent his fingers, and gently scratched Shi's delicate little face. The little girl's little mouth was closed, and she looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big sad eyes. However, her expression remained indifferent from the beginning to the end, and there was no change. In fact, she laughed twice. She couldn't hold it in. She was amused by Grandpa Xiang's doting expression and his action of playing with a cat. However, the little girl thought that she couldn't reshoot the movie too many times, so she seriously endured it. On the third take, she perfectly portrayed the indifference of Little Wheat. This scene was beyond my expectations. I thought that she would have to NG more than 10 times before she could pass. I didn't expect she to be so good. Really, she's better than I thought. She also received the excited praise from Teacher Du, which made her feel so happy that she was about to fly. I still want to act in the movie. She was bouncing around beside her mother, and she was overjoyed. It's still a while before it's your turn. Now, it's your father and Uncle Gung Sha's scene. Murphy brought Shi to another position and found a good angle to watch Yang Yi's performance. Papa is also super good at acting in movies. Because the shooting was about to start, Shi finally quieted down. She sat next to her mother, leaned on her mother's arm, and whispered. In fact, Shi didn't know so much. She was simply full of confidence in her father. Yang Yi didn't know that his daughter had high hopes for him. Although he often fantasized about being the lead actor and playing the role he liked in a movie, this was really pushing a duck onto a perch. He was lying on a simple hospital bed, a table, with a straight face and closed eyes, just like Lucas in the movie in his previous life, with a ferocious look on his face. After all, with the golden finger, Yang Yi had watched the original movie, and his memory could be read like a hard drive, so he could completely remember the character's every move on camera, and remember the character's expression every minute and every second. In addition, coldness was his nature, and he didn't need to act at all. With a straight face, his strong lines gave people a fierce feeling. Fortunately, in real life, Yang Yi had become much gentler. He was usually smiling, which was why so many children liked him, and why she stuck to him all the time. However, although Yang Yi acted quite well on the hospital bed, in fact, he was still very nervous. Not only did Yang Yi not know how he acted, but he was also secretly worried that if he NG'd too many times and was defeated by his daughter, wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing? Stop. Du Yuanlei suddenly shouted, Stop. Yang Yi opened his mouth, turned his head, and looked at Du Yuanlei embarrassedly. However, Yang Yi was too worried. Du Yuanlei didn't walk towards him, but towards Gung Sha. She said, Gung Sha, your movements here are not right. You should put down the bag and the bear. I'm sorry, Director, I forgot. Gung Sha also remembered. He quickly nodded and said, Okay, everyone, get ready. Du Yuanlei took the loudspeaker and prepared to go back. Ah. Director Du, what about me? Yang Yi asked. Ah. Du Yuanlei was also a little confused. She looked at Yang Yi. You acted quite well. Your expression is on point. Just act like you did just now. Du Yuanlei was right. Yang Yi imitated the original character very well. He expressed Ludi's dissatisfaction, disdain, helplessness, and speechlessness towards Wang Li. Oh. Yang Yi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that it was his fault that caused the NGs. However, he still had to work hard. He couldn't lose to his daughter. Just as the filming was in full swing, Guazi, who had finished watching the opening of the movie, returned to school. He didn't have any scenes today. He was supposed to help on the set, but he made an appointment with Ding Xiang. Since the school was on holiday and there weren't many customers in the coffee shop, and Yang Huan hadn't returned from her hometown yet, he would take her to an empty place in the back of the mountain to teach her how to drive. However, when Guazi arrived at the coffee shop and saw the scene in front of him, he was furious. Chapter 547. After Tang Kai-tai was rejected by Yang Yi and left angrily, he didn't give up. He didn't know that Yang Yi was helping Thousand Miles Kawanshu with his lawsuit. He didn't know that Yang Yi was very clear about his character and some of his actions in the entertainment industry. The information collected by Hua Yang's lawyer was all about it. He only thought that Yang Yi had a problem with him because of Du Yuanlei. After all, Tang Kai-tai only knew that Du Yuanlei's Love Alley was later adapted into Fairy Tale. The screenwriter of Fairy Tale was Yang Yi. So, the only connection between him and Yang Yi was that he once quit acting in Love Alley. It must be this woman who sowed discord in front of Yang Yi. Tang Kai-tai hated Du Yuanlei so much that he gnashed his teeth. However, if this was the case, Tang Kai-tai felt that he still had a chance to fix Yang Yi's opinion of him. After all, in his opinion, the fat guy who chased after Du Yuanlei still acted as the protagonist of Fairy Tale. So, Du Yuanlei and Yang Yi should have nothing to do with each other. When Mr. Tang finished his business and returned to Jiangqing, he restarted his plan to get close to Yang Yi and ask Yang Yi to write songs for him. However, this time, Tang Kai-tai didn't go to Yang Yi directly. Instead, he found an opportunity when Yang Yi wasn't around and went to the corner coffee shop. "Welcome." Ding Xiang, who was reading, heard the bell and quickly raised her head to greet him enthusiastically. However, she frowned before she could finish her sentence. "Hello, beautiful." Tang Kai-tai smiled brightly. With his fair skin, he was indeed handsome. "Why are you here again?" Ding Xiang didn't have a good impression of him. However, there were other customers in the coffee shop, so she couldn't be too mean to him. She could only frown and whisper, "Our boss said that he won't work with you anymore." "I'm not here to see him." Tang Kai-tai sat on the high stool in front of the bar counter, seemingly inadvertently put a car key with a trident on the table, and then said to Ding Xiang with a smile, "I'm here for you." Tang Kai-tai didn't know Ding Xiang. He didn't know that in terms of age, Ding Xiang was his senior sister. Tang Kai-tai thought that Ding Xiang was just an ordinary working girl, so he deliberately showed that he was rich in front of Ding Xiang. He wanted to get in touch with Ding Xiang and have Ding Xiang put in a good word for him so that he could find an opportunity to rope in Yang Yi again. He didn't believe that with his father's position, there would be any celebrity who wouldn't want to curry favor with him. However, Tang Kai-tai's little tricks had no effect on Ding Xiang. First of all, Ding Xiang had no idea what those things were. Car keys? The key to a luxury car was completely different from the key to a car at the level of Tyrant. Moreover, Ding Xiang did not recognize the logo of the car. How could she have the thought of staring at the cars on the street or reading car magazines all day long? So when she glanced at it, Ding Xiang thought it was just a pendant. Secondly, Ding Xiang knew that Tang Kai-tai wasn't a good person. Ding Xiang was very clear about what he had done to Lu Xiaoshu and the others. Ding Xiang's frown deepened. However, she was still a waitress, and he was a guest. She didn't want to use a harsh tone, so she could only speak with a sense of distance and said, "If you want to drink coffee, please order." The car keys trick didn't work. However, Tang Kai-tai didn't take it to heart. Instead, he changed his strategy. He leaned on the bar counter and looked at Ding Xiang affectionately. He said gently, "I'm not here for coffee. I'm here to look for you. I want to take a picture with you." It had to be said that Tang Kai-tai was indeed good-looking. He was one of the more popular young men in the entertainment industry. Moreover, he was very good at dressing up and looked like a very gentlemanly Korean oppa. However, Ding Xiang still didn't put on a fake expression. She rejected him directly. "No, why? Why must I take a picture with you just because you want to take a picture with me?" Ding Xiang felt that this kind of aggressive way of picking up girls was very annoying. However, Tang Kai-tai didn't see the disgust in Ding Xiang's eyes. He thought that Ding Xiang was asking why he suddenly wanted to take a picture with her. I've been waiting for this sentence. Tang Kai Tai was pleased with himself, but he still said to Ding Xiang affectionately, because after taking a picture with you, I can prove to my friends that there are indeed angels in this world. He had used this trick on some beautiful girls in bars before. It worked every time, and he easily got their phone numbers. However, Tang Kai Tai didn't know that Ding Xiang wasn't an ordinary girl. Not only was she indifferent to Tang Kai Tai's provocative words, she even took 2 steps back and exposed him. I don't know what angels look like, but I know that they're definitely not like me. Their skin is so dark, and they're so ugly. No, they're not. I think your skin color is very healthy, and in my eyes, you're very beautiful. No one can compare to your looks. Tang Kai Tai even pretended to be emotional. Who said that angels must be white? There can also be angels among us yellow people, an angel as beautiful as you. This conversation not only happened to be heard by Guazi, who was walking to the door, but it also attracted the attention of the other customers in the shop. However, they thought that it was just the shop's pretty waitress who was being hit on, so they secretly laughed in their seats. There weren't many people who were as straightforward as Tang Kai Tai, but who asked Tang Kai Tai to be so handsome? He was dressed like a celebrity. If he hit on the other female customers in the shop, he might succeed. Don't shout, okay? Ding Xiang was a little anxious. She said, "We still have to open for business. Please don't affect others. Anyway, it's just a job, and the boss isn't here. Why don't you come with me? I'll take you to eat Western food and buy clothes. Angels also need to dress up, and this uniform of yours is too much for your figure." Tang Kai Tai even tried to stretch his hand out to hold Ding Xiang's hand as he spoke. "Hey, why are you so unreasonable? Are you trying to be a hooligan?" Ding Xiang couldn't bear it anymore. She wanted to pick up the book in the bar and throw it at Tang Kai Tai's head. However, she was still a little worried. She was worried that it wouldn't be good if she made a big fuss with Tang Kai Tai. After all, she also knew the identity of Tang Kai Tai's father. She wasn't sure if it would affect Brother Yang. However, when Ding Xiang was still weighing the pros and cons, an angry shout came from behind Tang Kai Tai. "Let go of Sister Ding Xiang." Ding Xiang was stunned. She raised her head and saw Guazi rushing out in a flustered and exasperated manner. Tang Kai Tai also turned his head, but all he saw was a fist the size of a sandbag. Being fat also had its benefits. Guazi didn't have any skills, but his punch landed solidly on Tang Kai Tai's eye. Tang Kai Tai directly rolled off the high stool and onto the floor. However, it wasn't a big deal. It was just that there might be a black eye tomorrow. Tang Kai Tai covered his eye and awkwardly got up. He glared at Guazi with his remaining eye and scolded in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Damn fatty, you dare to hit me?" Guazi usually didn't get angry with others, let alone hit people. He didn't know why he was suddenly so angry. When he saw Tang Kai Tai flirting with Ding Xiang and his hand grabbing Ding Xiang's wrist, his head suddenly exploded. He pushed open the door and rushed over. After he finished hitting Tang Kai Tai, his hand was still trembling. He didn't know if it was because he was nervous or because he was in pain. "So what if I hit you?" Guazi gritted his teeth and said, You. Who told you to touch Sister Ding Xiang?" Guazi shouted. "What about you?" "I hit you. I just wanted to say a few words to this waiter." Tang Kai Tai clenched his fists, but he didn't dare to fight with Guazi. Guazi's size was obvious. After all, he was still young. When he was growing up, Guazi grew a lot taller this year. He was almost 1.75 meters tall. "Who doesn't know your intentions? Let me tell you, Brother Yang won't write songs for you. Give up. Don't harass our sister Ding Xiang." Guazi saw that Tang Kai Tai was scared. He emboldened himself. He straightened his chest and said, "Get out of here. You're not welcome here." Guazi knew that Tang Kai Tai had been here before. Ding Xiang had talked to him about it. However, Guazi didn't care before, thinking that Yang had already taken care of it. Tang Kai Tai took a step back. He felt that he couldn't afford to lose face. He clenched his teeth and turned around to leave. Remember this. Guazi watched Tang Kai-tai leave. He breathed a sigh of relief. The warrior with a straight back just now disappeared. Instead, he turned his head to look at Ding Xiang with an embarrassed face. Are you okay? Ding Xiang finally came back to her senses. She remembered that she saw Guazi's trembling hand. She stretched out her hand and said worriedly, "Let me see your hand." "I'm fine." Guazi quickly waved his hand. "Let me see." Ding Xiang grabbed Guazi's hand and carefully looked at it. There were no scars. Only then did she feel relieved. Her eyes were filled with gratitude, but her mouth was a little worried. "Why were you so impulsive?" "In fact, he can't touch me. Moreover, you know that I'm quite strong. If I wasn't worried about the bad influence, I would have kicked him out." "It's okay. That kind of person is asking for a beating. It's useless to beat him up," Guazi said with a smile. He returned to his previous appearance and bragged, "Moreover, you didn't see it. He's just a paper paste. I hit him with a punch." "You're showing off," Ding Xiang snappily said. "If his father wasn't the director of Xiongnan Television Bureau, I would have kicked him out long ago. Do you think it would be your turn? Moreover, in the future, you'll be in this line of work. If you hit him, won't your future be affected?" Ding Xiang worriedly looked at Guazi and asked, "Haha, what's so scary about a small director?" Guazi waved his hand and said with a disdainful smile, "Don't worry, Sister Ding Xiang. My family wants me to keep a low profile. I'm not like him, showing off who my father is. Humph, if we really want to compare family background, I'm not afraid of him. There's also Brother Yang." Guazi, who knew some inside information, said with a smile, "You don't have to worry about Brother Yang. He has a military background. Moreover, it's going to be exposed soon. Who dares to touch him? In any case, if you see him in a bad mood, just throw him out. I guarantee that he won't dare to make a sound." "You don't be so reckless all the time." Ding Xiang was somewhat speechless. "By the way, Sister Ding Xiang, I just heard him say that you're an angel." "An angel?" Guazi thought of something and smiled at Ding Xiang. "What do you want to say?" Ding Xiang frowned and asked, "How can there be such a black angel like you?" Teske, how hypocritical can he be?" Guazi joked. Chapter 548. What do you think? I was right, wasn't I? Brother Yang definitely wouldn't care about what we did, Guazi said to Ding Xiang, beaming with joy. Tang Kai-tai was beaten up in Yang Yi's coffee shop. Of course, he had to inform Yang Yi about it. However, Yang Yi's reaction was very calm. He only replied that he got it. At most, he would only ask Ding Xiang and Guazi to protect themselves. Nothing else. If he beat them up, so be it. But Brother Yang didn't agree with what you did. If it were him, he would definitely think of other ways to deal with it. Ding Xiang saw that Guazi was a little complacent. She didn't want him to become a playboy, so she popped him like a balloon and said, if Brother Yang agreed, he would have done it long ago. You wouldn't have a chance. Guazi was the weakest among them. Ding Xiang was stronger than him and Yang Yi was good at kung fu, not to mention Yang Yi. Actually, Ding Xiang had overestimated Yang Yi. Yang Yi was just shooting a movie, so he didn't have time to talk to Ding Xiang. In fact, when he heard that Tang Kai-tai was beaten up by Guazi, Yang Yi applauded Guazi in his heart. Yang Yi treated Ding Xiang as his sister, just like Yang Huan. If he saw Tang Kai-tai holding Ding Xiang's hand and flirting with her, he might also beat him up. After Ding Xiang finished her work at noon, Guazi took her to the back of the mountain to learn driving. The Media University of Zhongqing was leaning against a small mountain. After going around it, there was a large open space the size of a football field. It was said that it was planned to be a football field for the university town. However, after the land was leveled, the football field project was cancelled for unknown reasons. No matter what the reason was, this place was suitable for Ding Xiang to practice driving. The place was flat and there were no stones or trees in the way. She could drive straight or practice turning. Compared to the dangers on the road, this place was simply a paradise for driving practice. Guazi had already brought Ding Xiang here a few times. Shift gears and speed up. Guazi's voice could be heard in the car with the windows open. Tyrannical Wolf was a manual transmission car, and it also had an automatic transmission. However, Yang Yi liked the valiant acceleration when he switched gears, so he did not buy an automatic transmission. In fact, Ding Xiang had already mastered the basic driving skills. She didn't have to carry these things too quickly, but she drove like a snail. She switched to second gear and drove slowly. She didn't dare to drive too fast, as if she would lose control if she drove too fast. Isn't it too fast? Ding Xiang was still a little hesitant after hearing Guazi's reminder. There's still a long way to go. Furthermore, you just have to control the steering wheel and turn slowly when you're making a turn. It's fine to go a little faster. Guazi helplessly said as he pointed to the front. Okay. Ding Xiang answered hesitantly. Then, she stepped on the clutch, controlled the steering wheel with her left hand, and pushed the gear forward with her right hand. However, the movement of her right hand was not standard. The lever was pushed directly to the fifth gear position. As a result, the car emitted a series of powerless noises. Moreover, the car clearly became powerless. What's going on? Ding Xiang's driving experience was not rich enough. She immediately panicked. You're in the wrong gear. Step on the clutch. Guazi shouted when he realized what had happened. Ding Xiang followed his instructions and stepped on the clutch. Then, she felt her right hand on the lever being held down by Guazi. After all, girls' hands were slender, and Ding Xiang was no exception. Guazi easily grabbed her hand along with the ball, pulled it down, and accurately shifted it back to second gear. Again, step on the accelerator and shift gears again, Guazi said to Ding Xiang as if nothing had happened. Ding Xiang was in a daze. She sat in the driver's seat with her eyes staring ahead. However, she did not know where her mind had drifted. After a while, she finally reacted. Oh! Her cheeks were slightly red. Who knew if it was because she was embarrassed by her mistake or for some other reason? She hurriedly stepped on the accelerator, released the accelerator, stepped on the clutch, and shifted to third gear. This time, Ding Xiang did the right thing. After all, she was smart. All her actions were orderly and smooth. Okay, speed up. Maintain this speed and start to turn, Guazi said. It seemed that he was not affected by her actions just now. But who knew? Guazi's heart was actually stirred up a little. Just now, because he was in a hurry, he directly grabbed Ding Xiang's hand to help her shift gears. Guazi did not react. When he reacted and withdrew his hand, the mistake was already irreversible. Guazi was a little worried that Ding Xiang would take special notice and think that he was a lecher like Tang Kai Tai. Therefore, he wanted to pretend that nothing had happened. However, secretly, Guazi's mind was filled with that soft and cold touch. Okay. Ding Xiang did not say anything and just drove obediently. The atmosphere in the car was faintly awkward. On the set of the private clinic, Yang Yi and she were shooting the last scene of the day. The plot was that Wang Li brought Wang Mai to meet Ludi. Because Wang Li was going to apply for a fake passport, he needed Ludi to help take care of Wang Mai. However, Ludi was very impatient at first. He was already very annoyed and did not want a little kid to bother him. However, some scenes were as classic as the first meeting between Matilda and Leon in Lion, the Killer. Although in this movie, Wang Mai did not speak and did not have the classic dialogue of Matilda saying, "Is life always so difficult, or is it only in childhood?" The first meeting between Wang Mai and Ludi was destined to be a classic. After shooting this scene, Cece walked in with Gung Sha holding her hand. When she saw her father lying on the bed, she couldn't help but smile, causing several NGs. However, the little girl, who was full of a sense of responsibility, finally managed to adjust herself. I can't smile when I see Papa." Before they started again, she said to Gung Sha. It was not that she had to talk to Gung Sha. She just wanted to mutter her thoughts. "Yes, for the time being, you can treat yourself as Xiao Mai and treat me as your father." Gung Sha bent down and clenched his fist as he cheered Shi on. "Action!" As the director shouted, Gung Sha reached out his hand to the door and pulled Shi over. Shi's small hand was gently held in Gung Sha's big hand. Her small body still looked very lonely. The little girl's delicate face, small mouth, and big eyes revealed sadness. She just stared blankly at the Uncle Ludi, whom she met for the first time. Yang Yi's character, Ludi, did not make any mistakes. He controlled his expression and body very well. The impatient Ludi became hesitant. Although he was still a little impatient, he was more at a loss for what to do. It was as if his heart was being interrogated under the silent gaze of Xiao Mai's clear eyes. He could scold Wang Li, who messed up his life after being released from prison, as an idiot. However, when faced with the angelic, delicate, cute, and pitiful Xiao Mai, all his anger disappeared. He didn't even know where to put his hands. This series of small actions was a perfect reflection of Ludi's cold exterior but warm interior. Good shot. Du Yuanlei watched through the monitor and couldn't help but clench her fists and cheer in her heart. Next, it was mainly Shi's scene. First, when Gung Sha told Shi that he wanted Xiao Mai to take care of Ludi, the little girl stared straight at the camera. She was looking at Ludi on the hospital bed. Her expression didn't change from beginning to end. However, from the way Xiao Mai looked at Ludi, this scene was enough to show Xiao Mai's curiosity towards Ludi. Perhaps only an innocent child would be able to see the sincerity in Ludi's heart. Then, when Shi walked out, she walked slowly. Suddenly, she slowly turned around, turned sideways, and turned her head. Her expression didn't change. She still looked at her father with those heart-wrenching eyes. Although this was required by the script, because Wang Li told Xiao Mai that Ludi was sick and needed to be taken care of like a baby, Xiao Mai seemed to pity Ludi even though she was autistic. This glance made Yang Yi very uncomfortable. It seemed like his heart had softened. After she walked out of the room, Du Yuanlei finally waved her hand and excitedly clenched her fists. She said, "Good pass." The others were also relieved, laughing and applauding one after another. This scene was passed in one take. Shi's performance in the camera was too good. "Did you know? Sister didn't expect you to be so good. Especially at the end, your acting was so good. Sister didn't want you to stop looking at those little eyes." Du Yuanlei praised Shi. She didn't know if she was born like this, but she easily broke out of her acting state. The little girl was happy and embarrassed when she was praised by Teacher Du. She intertwined her little hands behind her back and stuck out her little tongue as she laughed. "Uncle Gung said that I want to act as Xiao Mai, so I can't treat my papa as my papa." She even explained to the other party, Then I can't laugh." "That's right. Although you smile very cute, you're still very beautiful when you're shooting a movie." Du Yuanlei also rubbed Shi's soft hair lovingly. Shi giggled and ran back to her parents' side. Naturally, she also received praise from her parents. The little girl's performance today was outstanding. Chapter 549. 2 days later, Yang Huan returned from home and embarked on a tour of Meng village with Ding Xiang. The coffee shop at the corner of the street was officially closed and was taken over by a renovation company arranged by Yang Yi. They would renovate the coffee shop according to Yang Yi's requirements and drawings. Yang Yi, Guazi, and the rest were also filming their movie on the set. It seemed that everything was calm and peaceful. However, what was surging was an undercurrent that was hidden on the surface. After being beaten up by Guazi, Tang Kai Tai, of course, could not take it lying down. He gritted his teeth and returned to Xiongnan. When he returned to his own territory, he began to think of ways to take revenge. However, what made Tang Kai Tai depressed was that he did not know how to deal with Guazi, who had beaten him up. This guy was just a small-time celebrity. There was no news about him in the newspapers. The only news about Guazi that could be found on the internet was related to the mini-movie Fairy Tale, or the song Fairy Tale. However, Guazi was just like Yang Yi. He usually kept a low profile and did not participate in any variety shows. Therefore, Tang Kai-tai could not ban Guazi from all the TV stations in Xiongnan. However, every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Yang Yi was the one who had humiliated him in the coffee shop. Tang Kai-tai felt that he should find a way to teach Yang Yi a lesson. He wanted to show Yang Yi that he was not all talk. Compared to Guazi, Yang Yi was much easier to deal with because he had a big family business. For example, Yang Yi's books were also sold in all the major bookstores in Xiongnan. Tang Kai-tai used his father's name to find the relevant personnel in charge of the book publishing. He asked them to remove all of Yang Yi's books from the shelves with the reason that Yang Yi had written books that would mislead the public, such as Journey in the White Night. This reason could not stand up to scrutiny. Moreover, this kind of top-down action was very effective. Almost overnight, all the bookstores in Xiongnan no longer had Yang Yi's books on their shelves. This news naturally reached Yang Yi's ears very quickly. Some of our close bookstore owners told us that this might be because you have offended someone. Lu Benji called Yang Yi and told him about the situation. After that, he passed the information to Yang Yi. Xiongnan. Yang Yi did not need to think to know who was behind this. Is the loss serious? Yang Yi asked calmly. It's not serious. Most of our books are sold online. Especially in Xiongnan, where the economy is developing well, 70% of our books are sold online. Only 30% are affected. However, there are some readers who come to our Sahara Mall to buy books if they can't buy them in physical stores. Lu Benji said to Yang Yi. With Tang Kai-tai's background, it was impossible for him to affect online sales or the huge copyright organization. Then this matter will be settled for now. You don't have to worry about it. Yang Yi said to Lu Benji. Yang Yi didn't take it to heart at all. He felt that online shopping would become a trend, and he could use this opportunity to see if more people would go online with the help of external forces. However, Yang Yi and Lu Benji did not expect that the ban on Yang Yi's books would be removed within a few days. Yang Yi did not even have time to think of a way to deal with Tang Kai-tai, and his books were back on the shelves. After all, they were all bestsellers, and the bookstore did not want to lose customers. But Tang Kai-tai gave up just like that? It was indeed so. Behind this farce, the military announced that Yang Yi was the spokesperson of the Southwest Military Region. This identity certification was directly issued from the highest level of the military, and it made many people wary. The spokesperson of the military was a special product after the development of the entertainment industry. Just like the famous celebrities in the art troupe, there were spokespeople for the military in this world. They mainly chose artists with good conduct to improve the image of the military and to increase the enthusiasm of young people to join the military during the annual conscription. Although Yang Yi did not reveal his complete background, with a military background, it was destined that Yang Yi was not a noob author that could be easily manipulated. The leader in charge of managing the book publishing did not dare to joke about his future, and took the initiative to remove the ban on Yang Yi's books. This farce in Xiongnan came and went quickly, but in the end, it calmed down. However, when Yang Yi became the spokesperson of the military region, the Southwest Military Region also introduced Yang Yi on their official website. There was nothing particularly shocking in this introduction, because the news that Yang Yi came from the Special Forces was hidden. They only told the public that Yang Yi was once an outstanding soldier, and when he retired, his military rank was at the rank of an officer. The media was like a cat that smelled blood, and they all reported this news. However, they were more interested in Yang Yi's identity as a former soldier. This was only a one-sided statement from the studio, and now it was finally confirmed. What was even more reported were the two photos of Yang Yi that were released along with the announcement. The first photo was of Yang Yi singing in front of the soldiers of the Southwest Military Region. It was taken by the military's own publicity staff. In the photo, Yang Yi was neatly dressed in military uniform, standing upright on the stage and singing. It had to be said that Yang Yi's spirit and temperament were raised a lot when he wore the military uniform. His originally tough and cold face suddenly became extraordinarily handsome. This also made the reporters praise him endlessly, saying that Yang Yi did indeed have the characteristics of a soldier. The second photo made the reporters and fans even more crazy. It was an old photo. The photo was a little yellowed. At that time, there were no digital photos that could be stored for a long time. The photo could be traced back to many years ago. At that time, Yang Yi had yet to enter Wolf Warriors. He was just an ordinary soldier in the razor-sharp platoon, which was known as half a special forces unit. In the photo, Yang Yi's face was painted in camouflage. He was lying on the ground with a rifle and shooting live bullets. Although the camouflage made it impossible to see Yang Yi's skin color, one could still vaguely see that Yang Yi's face was young and inexperienced at that time. However, when Yang Yi was young, he was serious in speech and manner. His large eyes were slightly narrowed like an eagle, watching his target. His entire body exuded a fierce aura. Those who were familiar with the current Yang Yi would feel that he was a stranger. However, this was a photo from more than 10 years ago. The younger version of Yang Yi still made the fans explode on micro-broadcasting. Is he that cool? Now I know that Yang Yi is a good family man. I didn't expect him to have such a cool side to him as a former soldier. He's good at both the hall and the kitchen. Our Murphy has indeed married a good man. Hee hee. Looking at Yang Yi's military photo, I finally understand how Soldier's Assault could make an ordinary story so moving. How could an ordinary character be written so vividly? It turns out that Yang Yi really did experience it. He really was a soldier. Looking at these photos of Yang Yi and listening to Yang Yi's military songs, I can also understand that Yang Yi's songs are not for nothing. I give a thumbs up to the dedication of a soldier. Although Yang Yi had no intention of becoming a celebrity, with the announcement of his military identity, Yang Yi received more and more attention. Just like his micro-broadcasting, Shi's Family Chef, the number of fans under his name gradually exceeded 5 million. He was almost catching up to Murphy. Chapter 550. There was an old saying, when God closes a door, he will open a window for us. When Yang Yi was still thinking about how to deal with Tang Kai Tai, Lu Benji came to him again to tell him a piece of good news. But it was not good news from Xiongnan. This was a few days ago. In the afternoon, at the temporary bank set, Lu Benji happily told Yang Yi, who was sitting on a chair and waiting for his scene to start, "Boss, your Prison Break has caught the attention of Wolf TV station in America. They want to talk to you about the transfer of the copyright." Wolf TV station? This was a large online TV media company. It was similar to HBO in Feng Yu's previous life. Their parent company was more powerful. It was one of the top 8 film production companies, Time Corporation. Among the imported American dramas, many of them were copyrighted by Wolf. But Wolf did not have a branch in China. So, why would they want it? Yang Yi asked. How did they know about my book? Don't tell me Global Pictures CEO Sue is so kind to recommend it to them? Of course, that was impossible. Lu Benji laughed and told Yang Yi that Wolf TV station took the initiative to invite translators to translate the first season of Prison Break. Then, they sent emails to all the major film production companies and presented the work to them. Wolf TV station was the first to take the bait. Translation. Yang Yi realized that he had forgotten about this. For some of his works, he could translate them overseas himself. Yang Yi's English proficiency was at the same level as a native speaker. A novel like Prison Break was originally a novel that he had translated and organized himself. It could be completely translated into English and sold overseas. Of course, the most important thing was still the film rights. He could let more film production companies see it. He did not need to dawdle with Global Pictures. Lu Benji had given him a good idea. Putting this aside for now, Yang Yi was more interested in Wolf TV station's intentions. Would they be like Global Pictures CEO Su Zhongwei and treat him like a fool? In fact, it was true at first. After all, it was a place where capital reigned supreme. Wolf's first email was to lower the price and take advantage of the fact that the Chinese did not understand the American television market to get the copyright of Prison Break at a cheap price. The negotiation team organized by Sahara Publishing for Yang Yi was not to be trifled with. When Wolf's people contacted them, the professional and rigorous negotiation team immediately made them stop underestimating Yang Yi. In addition, Sahara Publishing also raised the flag and told them that a pack of wolves were waiting for them, including a big company like Global Pictures, and that Wolf was not the only wolf eyeing the TV copyright of Prison Break. Wolf's men finally changed their attitude and started to discuss the price of the copyright with Sahara. Yes, in terms of negotiation, you are more professional than me. I trust you. Yang Yi nodded and said to Lu Benji, but I hope that before the results of the negotiations are out, Wolf's side will first show their sincerity. I'm not talking about money, but I want a shooting plan, who is the director, estimated investment, etc. This needs to be written in the contract. I don't want my work to be ruined by some rookie director. Lu Benji jotted down the details in his notebook and nodded. After the discussion, Lu Benji packed his things and prepared to leave. Old Lu, do you have any plans later? Yang Yi asked with a smile. Nothing much. I'm planning to return to the publishing company. Boss, do you have any orders? Lu Benji was stunned for a moment and shook his head. If you don't, then stay. In a while, everyone will celebrate my daughter's birthday. You can join in the fun too. Yang Yi said with a smile. Today was July 13th. It was Shi's birthday again. The little girl was the same as Murphy, celebrating a new birthday. Note 1. Yang Yi didn't plan to make a big fuss today. Just like last year, he and Murphy would throw a small party for the little girl at home, and then the whole family would warmly congratulate Shi. That would be enough. But Guazi was very considerate. He remembered Shi's birthday from his previous conversations with Yang Yi, and even told the whole crew that the little girl was celebrating her birthday on that day. After a few days of interaction, whether it was Du Yuanlei, Geng Sha, or the rest of the crew, they all liked Shi, who was smart and good at chatting. Just like the makeup artist Xiao Ran, when he was doing Guazi's aged makeup, Shi ran over excitedly to observe. As she watched, she asked Xiao Ran some strange questions with admiration. Not only did Xiao Ran not feel annoyed, as a senior makeup artist, he actually found a long-lost sense of accomplishment with Shi. The little girl's big curious eyes made Xiao Ran feel that every stroke of her eyebrows was as great as the Genesis. If it weren't for Shi being too young, he would have taught her everything. There was also the veteran actor who played the role of a veterinarian, Professor Xiong Zhonglei. The old man especially doted on this little girl. After he finished filming his scenes, he stayed and volunteered to be Shi's acting teacher, guiding Shi's later performances. Under his guidance, Shi's acting became better and better, and his fluffy white hair became thinner and thinner as Shi played with it. After the news of Shi's birthday spread, the whole crew unanimously decided to give Shi a big surprise. Everyone would celebrate her birthday together. This plan was decided 2 days ago, and it had been carried out secretly. Even Yang Yi and Murphy participated in keeping it a secret, so Shi didn't know at all. However, there was a problem. Shi didn't come today, because the scene was a bank robbery scene, and the little girl didn't have a part in it. This was the shooting plan that had been made before. The rented venue couldn't be delayed, so the shooting could only be carried out according to the plan. Of course, the problem was easy to solve. Murphy took Shi and sat in the car driven by Lans Hao Kai's bodyguard, along with Miss Lan Xin, who came to join in the fun. In the afternoon, when the sun was not so hot, they came to the set to visit Yang Yi, who was filming. This excuse was good, and it completely fooled Shi, who didn't have any doubts. Then, the little girl came. Uncle Lee, I came with Mom to see my papa. My papa is shooting a movie inside. It's not Uncle Geng. Yang Yi is my real papa. And this is my good friend, Xin Air. She also came to see my papa. Can you let us in? Please, don't refuse to let Xain in, okay? She's clear and pleasant voice came from afar. After a few days of getting along, she had become familiar with everyone in the crew, including the security guard who maintained the order on the set and prevented outsiders from sneaking in. Murphy also intended to train she's ability to organize her words, so that she could greet the security guard, Uncle Lee. Chapter 551. When she's voice came in, everyone was preparing for the little girl's surprise. However, they weren't ready yet, so they were in a mess. Fortunately, the director, who was the best at controlling the scene, was here. Du Yuan-Lei picked up the loudspeaker and walked to the set, which was in the middle of the temporary bank. She said to everyone, "Don't worry, I'll ask old Lee to help delay it. Is the music accompaniment ready? Okay, there's a microphone, okay. Everyone else is in costume, right?" The props team distributed the props. "Today, there's a little girl. Remember the changes we made just now? Xiao Gua, Mr. Yang, and Mr. Sha Huayan, please give the props to the little girl named Xain later." Under her arrangement, the set slowly became orderly. Everyone was preparing in an orderly manner. Even Wang Chao and the others had set up the camera and set up the rail car. Outside the set, she was dealing with the security guard, Uncle Lee. "Is she really your good friend? What's her full name?" In order to stall for time, Uncle Lee tried his best to add scenes for himself. He held a small notebook and pretended to take notes. "Her name is Xain. Her full name? Xain's name is Lon Xain." Cece really thought that the security guard, Uncle Lee, was doing his job to protect everyone, so she said honestly. Lon Xain held she's hand and followed her. She also looked serious and said in a low voice, "But everyone calls me Xain. "Yes, Xain. But Uncle Lee is asking for your name. He wants to say all your names. I think my name is Shi, but my full name is Yang Shi." The little girl helped Uncle Lee and explained to her friends. "Lon Xain. How do you write this name? Do you know how to write it?" Uncle Lee continued to make things difficult for the little girl. Uncle Lee, I can't write. I don't know Xain's name." She opened her mouth and quickly waved her hand. But I know how to write my name." "You can't just write your name. You have no problem, but we need to confirm the identity of your good friend. We need her name." Uncle Lee, the security guard, said dutifully. "Xain, little friend, do you know how to write your name? Why was it so troublesome?" Lon Xain also said in annoyance, "I don't know how to write my name. My name is too difficult to write." The chubby girl finally realized the importance of learning how to write her own name. But I can let Mom write it." "My mom will write it, right? Mom, do you know how to write Xain's name? I want all the names." Uncle Lee said too. She had to turn to her mother for help. Mo Fei knew the situation inside. She had been keeping in touch with Yang Yi. At this moment, when she saw the two little girls being helpless in the face of the bad security guard, Uncle Lee, she was secretly happy in her heart. Now that she asked for help, Murphy quickly put away the smile on her face and said seriously, "Of course, Mom will write it for you." Murphy's expression was very anxious. If it was an adult, they would definitely be suspicious if they saw her not smiling normally. But she and Lon Xain, the two little girls, didn't think much about it. They looked at their mother with expectant eyes, waiting for her to write Lon Xain's name. "Okay, please wait a moment. I'm going to find someone to verify it. Once I confirm Lon Xain's identity, I'll let you go, okay?" The security guard Uncle Lee was addicted to acting. He said to the two little girls seriously and gently. The security guard Uncle Lee took a small book and looked at it for a while before reading Lon Xain's name. At this moment, Du Yuan-Lei's voice also came from inside. Just then, She heard Du Yuan Lei read Lon Xian. Xian Air, Uncle Li, Sister Du is talking about Xian Air. She excitedly said to the security guard Uncle Li. Yes, I have reported this matter to the director, so she said that she will immediately check the identity of Lon Xian. Please wait a moment. The security guard Uncle Li lied through his teeth. He almost read Lon Xian's name one after the other with Du Yuan Lei. How could he have time to report it? But the two little girls didn't find this flaw at all. They were a little regretful, but they still nodded very obediently. Uncle Li, you have to hurry up. She said a little worriedly. You have to hurry up. Lon Xian chimed in softly. However, Lon Xian was a little absent-minded. Because it was her first time here, everything around her was very new to her, so she looked around and even tiptoed to look inside. It was as if she could tiptoe past the uncle in front of her and see the situation inside. Fortunately, the preparation work inside was completed very quickly. The security guard Uncle Li was a little reluctant, but he still had to do his curtain call. He pretended to talk to the walkie-talkie. What? Confirmed? Yes. Confirmed. When she heard this, her anxious big eyes suddenly lit up and she looked at the security guard Uncle Li happily. Hello, little friend Yang Shi, little friend Lon Xian, your identities have been confirmed and you can enter the movie shooting site. I wish you a good time. The security guard Uncle Li made way for the door and solemnly saluted, finishing his last scene. Thank you, Uncle Li. The little girl happily pulled Lon Xian, who was still a little confused and didn't know what had happened, and happily ran into the door. Murphy and Lon Xian's bodyguard, who helped carry the milk tea and coffee for visiting, also smiled and nodded to the security guard Uncle Li, and walked over. Of course, the bodyguard in the black suit didn't need to confirm his identity again. However, the security guard Uncle Li was still a little unsatisfied. He looked at the back of the bodyguard and smacked his lips. It seems that acting is quite interesting. No one knew that the security guard Uncle Li, who was just over 40 years old, had been a security guard for many years. He had never been successful, but this time, his heart, which had been silent for many years, was active. After The Fugitive finished filming, Uncle Li, who had made up his mind to go out and make a breakthrough, quit his job as a security guard and resolutely threw himself into the Beijing film and television base, becoming a professional cameo who still had no name but enjoyed it. However, it was a pity that in his future cameo career, Uncle Li would no longer be able to have so many lines and scenes. She pulled her little friend and happily ran in to look for her father. However, as soon as she entered the set, the little girl was stunned. Had she entered a fairy tale world? Although the set was still configured like a bank, almost everyone was wearing props like a fairy tale character. For example, Uncle Gung Xia was dressed like Jack in the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk that her father told her. A pointy hat, a farmer's waistcoat, and a pair of raised boots. Wow! Lon Xian couldn't help but cry out when she saw this scene. It's so fun. There was even a movie like this? I think it's fun too. Mom, where's Mom? She looked for a while and felt that it was a little unreal. She turned her head, but she couldn't see her mother behind her. She's here. Murphy had appeared in the middle of the set without anyone noticing. She held a microphone and said with a smile, Xian, today is a special day. Everyone has prepared a program for you. At this moment, Du Yuan Lei, who had trained her physique, performed ballet steps and vigorously walked in front of Shi and Lon Xian. She said with a smile, "Two little princesses, please allow me to show you this beautiful, fairy tale town." Chapter 552. Shi and Lon Xian were a little confused by the liveliness of the scene. Everyone was wearing costumes and dressed up as cartoon characters. Although there were no costumes on TV or in reality, everyone was dressed up with the characteristics of the characters. It was more consistent with the stories that Yang Yi told Shi and the comics that he drew. Like a wolf head, a duck head, a tiger head, and Uncle Gung Sha, they were dressed like ancient farmers. She turned her head and could see that her father had a long nose. That was Pinocchio. She recognized him at a glance. The sound system on the set started to play. First, it was the sound of the clockwork. The sound was very clear, and at first, it was a little confusing. This was the accompaniment that Yang Yi had prepared early. He originally planned to sing this song for Shi on her birthday. Murphy and he had already learned this song in the studio before Shi was on vacation. However, Yang Yi didn't think of doing so many tricks. The day before yesterday, Guazi revealed the secret of heaven, and everyone was angry. They wanted to celebrate Shi's birthday, so he came up with this idea. After the clockwork was tightened, it was as if a music box had been activated. There was a long and mellow whistle from the sound system. Accompanied by the gentle strumming of the guitar, the music opened the prelude to this dream journey. Du Yuanlei held the small hands of Shi, who hadn't recovered yet, and Lan Xian, who was in a daze. She smiled and jumped, leading them forward. Standing in the middle, holding the microphone, Murphy sang softly, "I heard that Snow White is running away, and Little Red Riding Hood is worried about the big bad wolf." Mo Fei's singing skills had already reached the level of perfection. With a smile on her face, she hummed softly with a nasal voice. The deep love contained in the song was intoxicating. It was so beautiful. She deserved to be Murphy. The people who participated in this event couldn't help but look at Murphy in the venue. Usually, she didn't show off. She sat quietly on the side and watched Shi and Yang Yi act. People didn't even remember that she was a big singer. Now, she finally opened her mouth. Sure enough, Murphy was still Murphy. At this time, the protagonist was Shi. Shi followed Sister Du step by step. The cartoon characters in front of her eyes were driven by the lyrics. "I heard that the Mad Hatter likes Alice, and the ugly duckling will become a white swan. I heard that Peter Pan is not old, but he has a harp and magic." She saw Brother Zhu Liang, who was wearing a tall hat, had a thick layer of powder on his face, and had red eyes. He was like a clown, making faces at her. At the same time, a certain actor wearing an ugly duckling mask was also doing the action of spreading his wings and flying high. Also, when the song reached the part of Jack, Gung Sha, who played Jack, reacted slowly. He panicked and took out a handful of confetti and threw it into the sky. As if he was casting magic, the confetti that filled the sky slowly floated down. It was very fun. The little girl vaguely understood what they were doing, but this interesting scene still made the little girl unable to help but grin and laugh. Of course, it wasn't that simple. "I heard that there is a candy house in the forest, and Cinderella lost her beloved glass slipper." Du Yuanlei smiled sweetly and let go of the two little girls' hands. She walked in front of Shi and took the lollipops from the hands of the people next to her. Then she turned and bent down, as if dancing. She handed the two lollipops to Shi and Lan Xian respectively. Lan Xian took it first. When she saw the lollipop, the little fat girl suddenly smiled and didn't care about anything else. After she took the lollipop, she was surprised to see that the glass slipper that Cinderella lost actually appeared in Sister Du's hands. Although it was not a real glass slipper, it was just a plastic dancing shoe that looked like glass. The prop team was still very awesome. She didn't know where they got this pair of shoes from, but it just happened to be Shi's size. The little girl was a little confused. She was held in Du Yuanlei's arms, and then the little shoes on her feet were taken off and put on the glass slipper, in a daze. "Am I going to become a princess?" She looked at the glass slipper on her feet. Not to mention how it felt to wear it, it looked very beautiful. It was sparkling and shiny, and it was studded with diamonds. Of course, it was also fake. The little girl suddenly felt that she was beautiful. "Why did you let me wear these shoes?" The little girl couldn't help but giggle and asked with a childish voice. However, Du Yuanlei smiled at her, put her finger on her mouth, and gently shook her head. "It's not over yet. Little Red Riding Hood has a red robe that can suppress herself and turn into a wolf." Murphy sang until here and paused. Long and I, who played the role of Little Red Riding Hood, ran over and put the small red coat on Shi. Suddenly, Shi, who wore the red coat, looked like the winner of a beauty contest, charming and beautiful. While doing so, Long and I also put her Little Red Riding Hood on Lon Xian's head, who was competing with the lollipop wrapper. Xian, you turned into Little Red Riding Hood. She beamed and pointed at Lon Xian. Lon Xian blinked her eyes and looked at Shi, but she was a little distracted. Without thinking too much, Du Yuanlei took the two little girls and continued to play with the uncles and aunties who were playing the role. It has to be said that many people present were multi-talented. For example, Elder Xiang Zhonglei smiled and took out a few balls to play juggling. Xiao Ran, the famous makeup artist, even did a tap dance. She did a simple tap dance and then high-fived Shi. He. That's amazing. The little girl was fascinated. She raised her little head, her big eyes curved, and her face was full of happy smiles. Accompanying the joy was Murphy's beautiful singing. There's always a colorful river winding in Fairy Town, tainted with the perverse aura of magic, but twisted in love. The river flows endlessly, splashes the water, and draws a curtain of time into the water. Shi and the others might not understand the lyrics, but the others present couldn't help but be fascinated by it. Perhaps their hearts were filled with a myriad of emotions. These children were still happy. With the fairy tale world that the adults created for them, their ignorant childhood was as colorful as the lyrics said. However, time passed too quickly. Watching the little girl grow up, there was always a kind of melancholy that made people sigh with emotion. Time flowed endlessly and never returned. But it didn't matter. Soon, the singing became lively again. I heard that Apollo turned into a golden crow, and there's a saber-toothed tiger running on the grassland. The actor wearing a tiger mask ran around, and Guazi, who was dressed as a birdman, greeted them with a smile. He put a pair of prop wings on Lon Xian. All of a sudden, Lon Xian became a little angel with a little Red Riding Hood, but she might not be able to fly. I heard that Pinocchio lied. The dwarf monster has a box full of gems. Yang Yi, who was wearing a long nose, finally came over. He smiled, took out a small magic wand with red gems on it, and handed it to Shi. Papa, your nose is like Pinocchio's. Papa, you lied. After she saw her father, the smile in her eyes grew. She took her father's hand, and while talking, she couldn't help but stick to her father. Inadvertently, the strong sense of attachment was reflected in her subtle movements. Although Fairy Town was very fun, the little girl was not like Alice. While she felt magical, she was somewhat flustered. She wanted to be with her father. Chapter 553. The little girl grabbed his hand. In order not to delay the upcoming performance, Yang Yi had to take over Du Yuanlei's job. He smiled as he took the princess crown from teacher Sha Huayan and put it on Shi's head. Then, am I a princess now? Shi reached out and touched the crown on her head. She was overjoyed as she held her father's hand and said, with her father by her side, she didn't have to be frightened by these strange performances. She could devote herself to the performance and enjoy the happiness that she deserved. At this time, her smile was the brightest. Hearing Shi's words, Yang Yi smiled and said, "Of course, you've become a princess. Today is your birthday, so you can become a princess." The little girl was wearing a red robe, a magic staff inlaid with rubies in her right hand, and a pair of sparkling crystal dancing shoes on her feet. She really did look like a little princess. Murphy didn't stop. She continued to sing, and she followed her father and continued to tour the grand party. The little mermaid smears the sunlight into eyeshadow and throws herself into the bubble's embrace. Old Master Xiang, who had just performed, took out a new toy. Like pulling out a sword, he pulled out a bubble stick. However, this bubble stick was not the kind of big bubble sword that could be opened. It was like a small bubble toy that was usually used to blow bubbles. It was arranged side by side in circles. Grandpa Xiang waved his hand gently, and many bubbles floated in the air. Although there was no sunlight shining on them and they weren't colorful, under the refraction of the lights, they looked sparkling and beautiful. They immediately attracted the attention of Shi and Lon Xin. It seemed that this was the first time Lon Xin had seen this kind of toy. She opened her small mouth and forgot to eat her lollipop. She looked at Grandpa Xiang in amazement as he magically created bubbles one by one. Amazing! Lon Xin said enviously. I want to play too, Grandpa Xiang, I want to play too. She couldn't hold back anymore. She stuffed the magic staff into her father's hand and ran up excitedly. She hugged her two small hands in front of her and looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big eyes expectantly. Here, take it. Of course, Old Master Xiang Zhonglei smiled and handed it to Shi. He even taught her how to use it. You have to put this in the soap water here. After you pull it out, wave it in a direction, and bubbles will appear on their own. She couldn't wait to wave it around. At first, only a few bubbles appeared, but after she followed Grandpa Xiang's instructions and filled it with soapy water, she waved it again. Many small bubbles floated out in front of Shi. The little girl was wearing a pair of crystal dancing shoes and a beautiful princess crown. She spun around and around like magic. Bubbles flew out around her. It was also very beautiful. This will disappear. Lon Xin was the follower of the bubbles. She happily popped a few bubbles and found that the bubbles would break and disappear in her hands. She hurriedly shouted and told Shi about this discovery. Really? Shi took the small stick and chased the small bubbles that she had just made. The small bubbles didn't fly very far. Shi caught up with a few of them. After she broke them, she also exclaimed in surprise, "It's true." In fact, the performance was almost over. The two little girls played with the bubbles and forgot about everything else. Only their laughter and Murphy's singing were left. However, Shi didn't pay attention to what her mother was singing. The lyrics were too profound for children. However, there were a series of names in the story that her father told. It was like a background music, which was quite interesting as the background music. Listening to the song and watching everyone's performance, Shi and Lon Xin both had a lot of fun. Finally, before the scene got out of control, Murphy's singing came to an end. Let all the things that happened a long, long time ago come to a happy ending. Everyone gathered in a circle. Du Yuanlei shouted 1, 2, 3, and then shouted to Shi in unison, Shi, happy birthday. I wish you happiness every day. Although it wasn't a particularly literary blessing, everyone sincerely expressed their blessings to Shi. Shi, who was a little carried away by playing, was hugged by her father. Yang Yi asked her to listen to everyone's blessings. You have to say thank you to everyone. Look, your uncles, aunts, and grandfathers have prepared such a good performance for your birthday, right? Yang Yi whispered in her ear. The little girl was still very well behaved. She snuggled in her father's arms and said, "Thank you." This small performance for Shi's birthday was actually prepared in a hurry. Only Du Yuanlei made a rough plan based on Yang Yi's song. As for the other performances, such as Old Master Xiang's three-ball juggling and Xiao Ran's tap dancing, everyone improvised based on their own talents. There were still some flaws, and it was obvious that some people were dissatisfied with it. But it didn't matter. The flaws couldn't obscure the beauty. It was already very good that a small performance for Shi's birthday that was prepared in 2 days could be done to this extent. What's more, the main character, Shi, was enjoying it. Do you think you're having fun? Yang Yi took the microphone from Murphy and became a live reporter. He smiled and interviewed Shi's thoughts. I'm happy, he. She was still a little shy in front of so many people. After saying that, she threw herself into her father's arms and shyly squeezed. What do you think of your uncles' and aunts' performances? Was it good? Were you surprised? Yang Yi looked at everyone and then continued to ask Shi with a smile. It was so fun. I know a lot of them. She couldn't help but tell her father about her discovery. Uncle Gung Sha is Jack. He will climb Daodu's tree into the sky. It's super fun. Her performance was recognized by the audience. Everyone around Shi looked at each other and smiled. Old Master Xiang looked at Shi, who was working hard to explain. The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. He reached out his big hand and rubbed her little head lovingly. Shi's birthday party passed with laughter and laughter. Lan Xian didn't go back empty-handed. She obtained the magic weapon for blowing bubbles. She hugged it as if it was a treasure and didn't let it go even when she returned to the villa. According to Lan Kai, Lan Xian realized that she had run out of soapy water and couldn't make any more bubbles. She even started bawling her eyes out. Fortunately, the nanny knew about this and gave her some soap water so that she could make bubbles again. Lan Xian then smiled through her tears. She also received a lot of presents. The little girl happily opened the presents and reminisced about the happiness of her birthday. She said goodbye to her 4-year-old self and finally became a 5-year-old girl. After the celebration, the movie still had to be filmed. However, 2 days later, when they were filming the scene of the bank being surrounded, Murphy frowned and walked over with Yang Yi's phone. Murphy said, "Yang Yi, you have to listen to this call. It's from Huan. Something seems to have happened. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.